in that game where the Patriots ran it 3 times in the snow and won 14-10, your father, and I remember this distinctly, that game, quote unquote, meant everything. He said it was telling about Brady, telling about the division.
At the time, it did, though.
Telling about the Bills. No, but at the time it did. That minute, it meant everything until
Belichick undressed Sean McDermott.
Okay,
he did.
And then what happened? Brian Daboll is back, is what happened. The Bills play the perfect football game, and now Brian Daboll, who's a failure in Cleveland. We've got post-traumatic stress disorder around here about Brian Daboll from 10 years ago because he came from Cleveland. We didn't understand why he came from Cleveland. Cleveland was in last in offense. He comes here, they're last in offense. 10 years later, boom. You get Josh Allen, you fix him, you're a head coaching candidate.
In defense of Brian Daboll, that Chad Henne injury totally nuked the season for Miami, and they had to turn to Matt Moore.
I remember that was Tony Sperano's lame duck offensive coordinator hire. It was like, you got one last crack at this. You're picking from the bottom of the barrel, which, by the way, Carolina is doing the same thing now. I don't know if you saw that Ben McAdoo is getting offensive coordinator interviews.
No, he's
for the
not.
Carolina Panthers.
Yes.
He's back.
That's a lame duck bottom of the barrel offensive coordinator hire, and the Dolphins are well familiar with those.
The reports were that in order to save his job, Matt Rule had to hire a quote rock star offensive coordinator. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben McAdoo.
Well, I mean, he is a name offensive coordinator.
He is as close to a rock star in that he looks like he lives in a van outside of the Forum waiting for the next Scorpion concert.
He is the last successful Giants coach, quote unquote, in successful. But he did a little bit of winning, Ben McAdoo, but we were grateful for him just because of the way that he looked, because he looked like a hot tub salesman in Des Moines.
Remember that final lame duck season of Ben McAdoo's where he started slicking his hair back?
Yes. Oh, that was his pivot.
That's when
He was trying to save his job.
That's when he became the rock star, right there. It was like, you know what? I'm going to come in here, and I'm not going to be Ben anymore. I'm going to be Benji, and I'm going to be Soho hip. And I'm going to gel my hair before I go into work. I'm curious how the audience feels about a weird turn of events this weekend, Stugotz. I don't know if you saw it, but Adam Schefter, I saw it on Instagram. I don't know if he reported it elsewhere. He reports that now the Dolphins, as a lot of other people are reporting, Tua is going to be their starter in 2022. A lot of people are reporting that's it. They've made the decision it's going to be Tua. But Schefter reports that Brian Flores out in Miami means that Deshaun Watson is out in Miami because Brian Flores was always the one clamoring for Watson. And that ran contrary to all the reports from the season, all of them. Everyone said that Ross was the one. And I'm assuming if you're going to go anonymous sources on this and you're going to get it everywhere, I'm going to assume that those anonymous sources are telling the truth, that they're not burning their reporters. So I assume that the truth was that Deshaun Watson was a Ross thing, not a Flores thing. Then came the backtrack from Adam Schefter a little while later, less reported than the original report. And I'm asking you guys, how'd you react to all that? And what do you think happened there?
Well, there was a subsequent follow-up tweet from Schefter where he says they were all on the same page and they all wanted Deshaun Watson 100%, one source said. So he basically reported both sides of the story. So from my perspective, I think the Dolphins organization all along wanted Watson, and they were trying to spin, having backing confidence in Tua. That was kind of like, it was an hour where both of the major NFL insiders had major Dolphins information. Ian Rappaport also had a story about how they're backing Tua 100%, and they want to find a coach who wants to build around Tua, which I personally found annoying as a Dolphins fan. You should be trying to find the best coach, and if they think Tua is not worth it, then they should move on from their quarterback. But either way, it was clearly, again, another concerted effort from the Dolphins to try and say, Tua is our guy, and maybe someone from the Flores camp calls Schefter is like, hey, man, that's not how this went down.
Well, yeah, he cited a second source that said they were all in agreement, and maybe that was a pro-Flores thing, but poked around, talked to some people that know some people, and it seems pretty legit that Brian Flores was the driving force. Now, whatever you may believe, maybe Brian Flores convinced everybody in the organization, and there was some consensus towards a deadline. Remember, there was that strange report that around the deadline that Stephen Ross needed certain specifications to be met, and they weren't met. And therefore, they didn't pull the trigger come deadline time, which I kind of found odd. I was like, if Stephen Ross is driving this whole thing like it's being reported locally, then why is he surprised that certain criteria aren't being met? Brian Flores, by all indications, was the driving force behind this. And regardless of whether or not they eventually found consensus, that is a stark departure from what the reputation was of one Brian Flores and one Stephen Ross this season. Stephen Ross took all the heat for Brian Flores because everybody was blaming Ross for this horrible situation.
For putting it on Flores, for putting the situation on him. And Stugotz, and this does not happen to me often because we've been around how the sausage gets made. But I've always thought you have to be discerning with these anonymous reports where there's coming from, who it is that stands to benefit, and that there's a grain of salt that you have to provide for the story. But now, I don't know how to do this anymore because Schefter's been compromised for me. Schefter has been compromised because he will tell one side of the story. That's not something I saw 4 months ago. So, and the thing that I don't like about that feeling is that I really now, you get all these reports from all these different places. I happen to think what Mike is saying is true, but I don't love that for a year I don't know what's true. And then out of nowhere, an insider appears that I've always trusted, and he reports something that's the opposite of what I've seen reported all along. And my first thought is some form of, well, wait a minute, is he wrong? Because he doesn't, in my mind, he's never wrong until a few months ago where I'm like, oh, there are shady people trying in the background to control the narrative through the insiders.
You don't trust Schefter as much as you used to. That's interesting. That's because his credibility has absolutely taken a hit in the last year. But I think most people, they still probably trust Adam Schefter. But that whole thing is fast. Like, who do we turn to?
No, but I'm asking you because I'm asking you, you don't change your mind on things.
No.
When you get, like, entrenched on believing a thing. Somebody's a liar when they come to you with information that's opposite from what you've known. Chris Cody, your entire year was spent thinking what was happening with Deshaun Watson.
I'm just confused right now. It couldn't it just be that they all wanted Watson, and now they're just trying to like Ross is like, no, Flores wanted him, and Flores is like, no, Ross wanted him, and it just seems like
hot potato.
It just seems like now they got rid of Flores, and they're just trying to spin this thing so that the media can get behind them.
Well, the thing that's hard to discern is everyone here has an agenda, right? Like, how do you get to the honest truth? But if you call Stephen Ross, he's going to tell you something that benefits Stephen Ross. And when you call Brian Flores, he's going to tell you something that benefits Brian Flores. Where is the honest brokering of information?
I've always counted on Schefter to do that for me. I've always counted on Schefter and Glazer and those guys to bring me the truth as well reported as it can be known. Multiple sources, multiple viewpoints. And because of what's happened the last 6 months, it's the first time I've always ever had that feeling. It's beyond liking him and knowing that he's a good journalist. Over the last 6 months, what you have seen about how the sausage is made and where he'll report something that is clearly one-sided, that is coming from an agent or somebody who wants that part of the story told. The part about it that I'm concerned about as someone who likes to consume this stuff is I don't like the deteriorating of, well, I don't know what the truth is here. I've got these people fighting over a sexual predator. Like, we spent the season with the Dolphins willing to take on the stain of anonymous reporting that they were so crass about winning that they were going to welcome those allegations into their huddle.
But nobody is denying that Brian Flores was deeply interested in Deshaun Watson and didn't like Tua. And maybe the Tua stuff was out there. It was pretty obvious from how he handled the situation. But Brian Flores totally skated on the Deshaun Watson stuff.
Mike, he's lost you because there was another report you sent me, and I don't know. Please give the source the credit because I don't know.
I mean, that story is just absurd. If you want to talk about, like, leaking with an agenda, The report was, I got to find the
Listen
source,
to this, though.
that Brian Flores didn't talk to anybody, any of his coordinators since Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that was an ESPN report from Marcel Louis Jacques. It was on he was on ESPN Daily.
Like not even a happy holiday.
What are we doing here?
No, he said that even
What
during
is happening?
even
Seriously.
during a 7-game winning streak, he was not communicating with his staff when meetings were happening.
You say that he had me, like these reports got me. I was willing to wait on the sidelines to form an opinion. Brian Flores had a very strong following and a lot of support, and a lot of fans were crying over the season, poor Brian Flores, how do you put him in this position? And it's irrefutable that he was team Deshaun Watson. No, you're throwing out a lot of angles and a lot of agendas. No one is refuting Brian Flores really wanted Deshaun Watson, and that flatly was not the narrative here this entire year.
I'm sorry. I'm refusing to believe that Flores did have a single conversation with either coordinator
It's
since
hard- it's
Thanksgiving.
hard
I'm
to believe.
picturing him
It's
with his arms
impossible.
crossed, with his
Yeah,
arms
right,
crossed, like,
yes.
I'm not talking
It's
to you.
hard to believe.
Not going to budge.
It's
Right.
I don't think you could go through a day doing that without like some of your muscles seizing and stuff because you have to hold yourself and move away from people saying hello.
Why is everyone screaming?
I know, because it's very
Weird.
intense.
Weird how you care about this stuff. Why?
Feel betrayed.
Yeah.
By who?
personally-
You're a Browns fan.
I feel betrayed by a narrative. I feel betrayed that we were trying to analyze this Tua Brian Flores situation, and Brian Flores was out here getting a lot of sympathy from folks because he was put in this terrible situation, and it seems as though it was his own making.
Antonio, Brian Flores should do the exact same thing Antonio Brown did, just to troll everybody and go on that Full Send podcast and like have the same vibe that Antonio Brown did. Wouldn't that be funny?
And if he just spoke with that kind of honesty, who there's better than me? Who? Ross?
He just sat down in front of a microphone. Hey, Tua, you watched him. He sucks.
everyone says that.
Same posture that Antonio Brown had, really lounge sitting.
And as an added bonus, takes out Tom Brady as well. Just takes out Tom Brady from the Patriot days. People think we were friends. We were never friends. If your friend gets you a good contract.
Why am I not earn a deal? He's like, what?
Belichick, bit of a kook.
How can you say that way? Brian Flores, Mike, because of what has happened.
I've been painted as anti-Brian Flores when I thought he shouldn't have been fired, but I am really shocked by some of these reports out there. And yeah, the Miami Dolphins are trying to cover their tracks. I find it unnecessary, but also the driving force behind the Deshaun Watson stuff seems to be Brian Flores. And you can't be part of Tuanon and also support Brian Flores at this point.
Billy asks why it is that we're yelling. And in my case, the thing that I keep trying to take you guys back to, and I understand discussing the soap opera, what you believe to be true. My faith in the truth has been rattled here because I've believed something else for a year. And I did not know that I was being manipulated quite that way. And it was surprising to me because I realized in that when Mike says he feels betrayed, I feel betrayed from within that. I feel like a sucker. I feel dumb because I've spent a year thinking the wrong thing.
We did countless shows on Tua versus Deshaun Watson, and how do you do this? And at no point was our ire directed towards Brian Flores for totally mishandling this situation. I think that's an important piece of data when you're trying to evaluate the job.
Well, Mike,
they
we
did.
would say Dolphins organization. I mean, that includes Brian Flores.
No,
I-
like, don't be cute with me.
I
This
felt-
was all about an 81-year-old owner, like looking for the last grasp to be a contender.
I felt bad when people were pouncing on Flores for something he said in a news conference that seemed like a little bit of a slight of Tua. That he didn't seem like he was supporting his quarterback the right way. And the feeling that I got because he mishandled it, and I think this was shared by the fan base, is how can you put him in this position where he's the only voice for your team on something like this? It made me pity him that he had to go out there and be the good soldier on behalf of the organization and on behalf of something that everybody was pinning on Ross, the owner.
When it comes to journalism, you kind of have a sense of how the sausage is made. So, like, I've always just kind of assumed if Schefter reports who the new head coach is for the Bills, someone in the Bills organization just told him. So like with this stuff, like hearing one side of the story, that's kind of the way I've always I know journalistically you're supposed to vet things. So to me, this is not this big revelation.
Yeah, but you're not making a distinction here on news and stuff that smears people. You're just saying, oh, first on a head coach, fine. I'm talking about how
Are we supposed to be?
I'm talking about how I thought about a man because of what was being put in his mind and heart about winning. Like at the end of Stephen Ross's life, we were burying this dude for something that he may not have been responsible for. Like we were all sort of doing it.
We were putting Brian Flores and saying we were putting our sympathies on him, saying, wow, he's in an impossible situation. When it appears that Brian Flores was really driving the Watson thing, got consensus from the owner from those reports because the owner was deeply involved in the trade
And you say all this, and I still don't know what to believe, Mike. Like this is what you believe and what things seem like, but I really don't know. Still, I don't know what's true here.
Let's connect the dots. There's obviously Michigan ties with Stephen Ross and Adam Schefter.
Yep.
So I assume he's getting his information from Stephen Ross. Now, we're all kind of stunned by the amount of the leaks and how they're painted a certain way. You could say that they're totally full of shit, or you could be like, wow, they absolutely kept their mouth shut the entire year while there was a narrative growing around this organization.
But which is it? So did they orchestrate a smear campaign when they got crushed and received the unusual reaction of people around the nation surprised by a firing of wrong? How before Martin Luther King Day could you take out the successful black guy and now you're left with just Mike Tomlin as a black guy? And now you also get with this conversation, you got people running around trying to defend Cully when he was always a bandage, who was never a coordinator, who was never, as far as I know, someone who interviewed for a head coaching job. They gave him $22 million to be a bandage over what was clearly a one-year job that was going to be a disaster because of Deshaun Watson.
I'm glad you brought up Cully. What did he do to deserve to be fired? I mean, seriously,
I just told you.
Nah, Cully, I listened a couple of weeks ago. I said Cully was the coach of the year, winning 4 games with Davis Mills.
You didn't listen. You were so ready to talk that I answered your question before.
No one cares about Cully.
Should they have waited till after Martin Luther King Day to do all of this stuff?
Jeez.
I answered your question before you asked it.
Well, I appreciate that.
But you were so rusty from a long weekend doing God knows what that you wanted to come down with Cully was wronged when he got $22 million. I'm going to say it again, Stu. Never a coordinator.
Right.
Never a candidate for a head coaching job. And I think maybe once interviewed, I'm not totally sure about that, a guy who was clearly there, hey, David, we'll give you $22 million. Get out there and just take the beating for a year. You're going to make more than Belichick this year because we're going to fire you with a 3-year deal. If by some miracle you win 10 games.
Right.
But that was viewed as something that had racial undertones or overtones. It did not. That was the deal. Now, I will tell you what has racial overtones. That ownership group is friends with Mitch McConnell, which makes you empirically racist, I think. Like close friends with Mitch McConnell.
By extension, I mean.
Yes, just close friends. If you are somebody who might be invited, put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Levitar Show.
Holiday card for Mitch
If you
McConnell.
get it, are you empirically racist?
I can only imagine the vacation David Cully's planning right now. Oh my God, you get fired, 22 mil.
Yeah.
Probably going everywhere.
He'd like to coach, though, I'm thinking.
Nah,
You think he's good with the $22 million buyout?
No,
After
Really?
a long
I
vacation.
don't know. He seems like a lifer. Yeah.
I think
He's
he's been
Tahiti.
planning it since before the season started. I think he might be
It
there.
played out exactly the way he
He
imagined.
might be there with a long-necked David Mills.
He led the chance of 1, 2,
Davis.
3 Cancun.
Fine.
I fixed it before you find me.
Oh.
But now Flores is a big-time contender for that Houston Texans job.
Correct.
I wish Deshaun Watson were to stay there and wave, like say, never mind, I don't want to be traded anymore, and that Flores and him end up reuniting and being better than whatever the Dolphins do.
It is still funny, though, that now Brian Flores is the picture of competence around the league. Like when Dallas has this disaster over the weekend, the first thing is they should bring in a competent coach like Brian Flores. He still maintains his reputation even after everything that's happened.
Stugotz, do you understand? I don't think you heard it before. Well, you certainly didn't hear it before you asked your question.
Well, the Cully got robbed?
Okay, so you are entrenched.
I'm with Stugotz
Thank
on this.
you.
I'm with him
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah.
What do you want him to do?
Right.
You handed him the equivalent of the roster that Brian Flores inherited. You give him this disaster of a quarterback situation, and he only goes and wins 4 games. He goes and beats the Chargers when they're trying to make the playoffs. Like, that was a really impressive season that they put together.
I think this was a gift. I think it was a favor. It was, you know what? Deal with this for a year, and then there's $22 million.
Boom.
Nice vacation. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think somewhere along the way, Cully said, "Hey, I like this.
Nah,
I'm pretty good
nah.
at this."
Nah, he looked around and he didn't say I like this.
I'm
to
going
Texans.
to add one bit of information I didn't have in before. I don't think. I think he's 66. Like, this is not a hotshot young coach.
Right.
Perfect retirement age.
I know Bruce Arians ran on the field as a 69-year-old and thought it was okay this weekend to like hit one of his players in the helmet because these guys, they're just it's.
I'm telling you about Bruce Arians.
He's 69 years old, hobbles onto the field and hits one of his players in the back of the helmet instead of reprimanding
Told
him.
you, not a nice man.
Can I read David Culley's Wikipedia page in terms of his coaching history so that you can describe how much he would have enjoyed being a head coach, and you're saying he wants to be out after a year? 1978, Austin P. running backs coach.
Exactly.
Wait.
Lifer.
You are now going to see, though, I'm not even kidding you here. If you want to have a race discussion around this, and I know many of you do not, but as you read this, imagine how frustrating it must be. Never mind, would he want to coach another year? Because he got his $22 million. Somehow he got reparations. He got $22 million in a year. But when you read this, I want you to hear how frustrating it must be. I don't even know what this says. To get to 66 years old and nobody was going to ever give you a chance. Never a coordinator. And I don't think maybe he has interviewed for a job, but I've never heard his name before interviewing for jobs. And so if he was interviewed for a job, I assumed Rooney Rule. This is not someone that is an up-and-comer. He's not going to change the game. I think he's 66 years old.
He is, yeah.
What is this coaching biography?
1979, Vanderbilt wide receivers coach. 1982, Middle Tennessee quarterbacks coach and running backs coach. 1983, Chattanooga wide receivers coach. Southwestern Louisiana, 1985, quarterbacks coach. Texas El Paso, 1989, offensive coordinator. Texas A&M, 1991, wide receivers coach. Tampa Bay Bucks, 1994, wide receivers coach. 1996, Pittsburgh Steelers, wide receivers coach. 1999, Philadelphia Eagles, wide receivers coach. 2011, senior offensive assistant, Philadelphia Eagles. Kansas City Chiefs, assistant head coach and wide receivers coach. 2013, Buffalo Bills quarterbacks coach. Baltimore Ravens assistant head coach, wide receivers coach, and passing game coordinator. Houston Texans head coach. You mean to tell me that this guy has been a coach of football for 40 years
Yeah.
in southwestern Louisiana, UTEP, and he's like, yeah, I'll take the parachute after all this work for 1 year where I did a good job. Come on. That guy wants to work.
Yeah.
He's tired.
Yeah.
He's in Aruba right now, loving life.
I mean,
I got tired hearing you read his
I mean,
resume.
look
I
at
can't even
every
imagine
like
living
2
it.
years he was somewhere else. You don't think he's gonna like $22 million just kind of plant the roots somewhere, live life? Be great.
You guys-
Maybe a boat somewhere.
you guys
Oh
know I
man,
can make this stuff about race. Like I could
we
go-
know we've done it.
I can argue
Yeah.
that side. I'm not going to do it here. I feel like he knew the job he was taking when he took it, and that was a professional transaction. That's $22 million on the nightstand. Thank you. We're gonna bleed for a year, and I'm gonna leave the money on the nightstand. And
You go
it's-
away
it's
and do
not-
whatever you want to
It's
do.
not going to be a relationship.
But to Whittingham's point, and I'm with him on this, I am telling you right now, even with $22 million, Cully is going to coach again. He'll go to college. He'll go to high school.
I hope so.
He'll go somewhere because that man is a coach.
But Stugatz, I've told you this last week. This is how ugly, speaking of MLK Day and whether they should have done before, after, or on, this represents, meager though it is, and in a league where there is now, today, one black NFL coach, I think it's a 60 or 70% black league. This is small progress that Flores is now the competent one in interviews, that Cully might actually, well, he'll get a better job. Maybe he'll get a better job if he wants it. I think there's no better job than $22 million in Aruba. But did you see what happens, Stugatz? And this is how it happens. And it happens so quietly, the way that the machine gets back to the status quo. Because while we were yelling and screaming about Flores and Cully last week, did any of you see, as followers of sport, what happened with Iowa football this weekend? this weekend. Iowa football had a nice season that if it didn't erase.
They always have a nice season. It's never a great season. It's always a nice season. Kirk Ferentz. I'm tired of him.
Talking about the extension, Dan?
What happened?
No. I've got something before that. It's the extension is good, and you just stole my punchline because, yes, he got an extension. But in 2020, when the NFL said from one day to the next, when the black quarterback speaks truth to power, and the next day Goodell's like, we were wrong, end racism in the end zone. They don't actually end racism, just end it in the end zone. That league, a conservative league, that continues to have Colin Kaepernick blackballed. This is what happened this weekend, quiet as it's kept, after that league moved its stance. We were wrong because of George Floyd, and now the machine tries to hum and get back into business toward the status quo. Kirk Ferentz, Stugotz, this is all important if you're watching, but people won't because now that will get professionalized down there. Kirk Ferentz, who's been running that place and could be Iowa coach forever and has been mentioned for head coaching jobs for as long as we've been doing this. Used to be a hot young candidate. Now he's Hayden Fry. He's been there so many years. And under his tutelage, where his son is one of the coaches, they had the scandal as there was an uprising that went for the money among the players. You know, you guys hate the plantation, but the unpaid labor that keeps this business going from that plantation all over social media got their strength coach fired for being somebody who was allegedly always racially abusing them. Got him fired. First order of business by Urban Meyer when he comes into white power. Get me that guy. He symbolizes strength. That does not work. But what happened this summer is that Kirk Ferentz right then said, no, we'll get this fixed. I'm going to create a committee of inclusion, diversity, and acceptance. This is so good, Stugotz. It's so bad, but it's so good what I'm about to tell you because you guys need to see this stuff because it happens so quietly in the shadows, even with a famous coach you've been talking about for 20 years. It's unbelievable. They have this committee of volunteers made up of former players. Volunteers, former players. Ferentz, so he can listen. Ferentz, I think his son's on the coaching staff. Might be the offensive coordinator. 10-player committee has a few contentious meetings. At one of them, the committee chair, an offensive lineman, says Ferentz has got to go, his staff has got to go, the culture's got to go, the athletic department's got to go. Next thing that happens, the committee's fired. 3 days later, Ferentz signs an extension through 2029, $7 million a year. Fired the committee that was there to speak truth to power. It spoke truth to power. He fired the volunteers of former players. He dissolved the committee.
He chalked it up to a new calendar year in an email to the committee. It's a new calendar year. I will look for ways to reconstructure the committee and the board in a way that best serves our program moving forward.
I think you read the word wrong. There's no way it didn't say. Read that word.
Restructure. Again. I'm sorry. The committee and board in a way that best serves our program moving forward. Meaning it best serves him. I mean, that is an incredible story. And you're right, no one's going to pay attention. Why? Because it's Iowa football. And why? Because the news broke during a super wild card weekend.
Well, it wasn't so super. It was pretty shitty football.
I don't know. I mean, there were two amazing games there.
There were two controversial games there, which is enough. There were two controversial games. They were not amazing games. I don't think Dallas-San Francisco was an amazing game. It was, right? Or was it?
I think Dallas-San Francisco was an amazing game. I think the Cincinnati game against Las Vegas was an amazing game. I mean, the rest of the games, they were not very good.
I thought it was a terrible weekend of football that made me regret. Maybe it's a one week sample size, but made me say,
"What are you, the game police?"
They diluted the playoffs, is what it felt like. It felt like
Jesus, it was the game of the year. I mean, McCarthy on the hot seat.
Steelers and Eagles didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. Should not have been in the playoffs. But when you say Dallas Cowboys, McCarthy hot seat, I was amazed by something yesterday, Stugotz. Amazed. Again, a television on, no sound up.
Classic Dan.
But it wasn't at home. I was not at home, okay? And I don't want to leave myself open to this.
You told the people whose house you're at we need to watch this on mute.
Turn it down.
I'm going to leave myself open to whatever jokes from all angles. I was at the gym. And for 50 minutes, on Undisputed, they never moved off that Cowboys game. It was after all that football because they had their morsel, right? So you got Bayless over there with Dallas stuff on the West Coast, and you got Stephen A. Smith doing it on the East Coast. And what I wanted to ask you, because we made it about a microscopic call at the end that can make fun of McCarthy, is the interest in Dallas the reason they're covered that way, or are they covered that way and therefore they create that interest in Dallas? Because the Cowboys have been on results irrelevant for a quarter of a century on results. It's a playoff win, not very much since Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones broke up, and yet they dominated. And it was the controversy, but it was the Cowboys too. Do you guys have the answer to that question? The Cowboys, does the interest end up birthing the coverage, or does the coverage end up birthing all of the interest? Because I'm not that interested in the Cowboys.
I have the answer. America's team.
So we're going to keep them that, even though
Yes.
okay. So
Yeah.
That's how those shows are produced.
Yes.
Midday television, well, all television shows, but
Mhm.
particularly daytime, really lean on the data that they get, and the audience kind of directs what they talk about. It's why if you turn on First Take, they're either discussing the Dallas Cowboys or Baker Mayfield. Why talk about Baker Mayfield? Why is he relevant? But they talk about him every week because it rates. Same thing with the Tebow stuff from years ago.
it's that easy to manipulate us. It's
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, no, it's that easy to know what you like and feed you more of it. So yeah, while you don't like it, but you generally run counterculture, most people dig that.
Do most people dig that the best part of the football weekend is that so many of the obnoxious fan bases got knocked out? Cowboys, Steelers, Patriots, Eagles. Like bang, 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 bang.
A lot of big time fan bases thoroughly embarrassed over the weekend.
No one more than the Cowboys, though, right? And the thing I wanted to ask you, though, about that, if you're saying that the interest in that team is bigger than the others in that sport, and therefore the microscope should be on that team more than others. They lost. McCarthy has had clock management issues. Just look at it. At Le Batard Show, put it on the poll, Guillermo. Can you tell Mike McCarthy has clock management issues just by looking at him?
Physical appearance?
Just by looking into
Wow.
his face walking down the street if you didn't know anything about what he did for a living. But the clock management issues in that game, to me, it seemed like in both games, really, and maybe I missed this, Stugotz, because the hunger for controversy dominated what wasn't a good football weekend. But I didn't think the whistle determined the play in the Bengals game where I thought Burrow, man, 3rd and 4, what a great throw. Not like Josh Allen hitting Knox by mistake. He was trying to throw that ball away in the end zone, and he ends up hitting Knox. Burrow, I thought that the whistle didn't affect that play. And then all of those men colliding for 3 hours, limping out there after 17 seasons. Some of these teams are too broken to be out there. It gets decided and talked about as a whistle, a whistle, a whistle, a whistle. And I just thought, man, great play by Burrow that wouldn't have been impacted in any way by the whistle. And then the end of the Cowboys game, I was like, oh, wow, the Cowboys shit the bed, and Dak's going to get off on all this. They're going to go into the offseason. It's going to be about clock management, and not like, oh my God, they look shitty at home, just like they did against the Broncos. You can't trust them.
I think there's plenty of blame to go around. And in fact, if I had to blame one of the two, I would blame Dak Prescott. I mean, he got the ball back down 6 with about 2 minutes to go, 3 timeouts. And he just signed a contract coming off an injury for north of $200 million. I'm sorry, at home in that spot, you want to be an elite quarterback, you drive your team down the field and you get a victory. That's what you do. Like the fact that they got the ball back and were in that position in the first place was a miracle. It was.
Stugotz's top 5 people to blame for the Cowboys loss.
Oh,
do you want to
geez.
do? I mean, okay, because you just went with the most predictable take when they pay you a lot of money.
Everyone's crushing McCarthy. I mean, why? Dak Prescott is the guy you should be crushing today. Sorry.
You're not wrong that he should win the game there, but then we'd be criticizing San Francisco about something. Wasn't there a pass that
Jimmy looked horrible.
Terrible. I mean,
we'd be doing it to them too, that they can't win a quarter.
Not sure how good Shanahan is. Even
Right.
after winning, I'm not sure.
With 5 minutes to play, you knew that someone was going to get blamed in a massive way. It was either the Jimmy Garoppolo is not a franchise quarterback and Kyle Shanahan blows leads, or Mike McCarthy should be fired and Dak Prescott's not a real. It was one of those you just know when it's happening. The first take, Chiron the next morning.
Kittle saved them from all of that by simply not catching
Yes.
that ball that bounced.
yep. The greatest incompletion in the history of the NFL.
Can we talk about how stupid that is, though? That the product would be. I mean, we've talked so much about the way the pandemic has accelerated the greed. The billionaires, the top 10 richest men in the world made twice their money, or some sort of ridiculous stat about how much wealthier they got during the pandemic while everyone else was suffering. Football keeps getting fatter. They give you slop, okay? It's just we've played too long a season, and here's an unprecedented 18th game before we get to where it is that we're going, right? Like, it's going to be 17 games during the season. You're going to crawl to this finish line, and the Steelers shouldn't have been in the playoffs. And then the football's going to be crappy all over the place. And we're going to spend the next 2 days talking about 2 calls and yelling at the refs. The officiating has to be better. Bogert, is that his name? Get out of here.
Bogert.
Yeah.
You're
fun.
Well, he is out of here.
He
Yeah.
is out.
He'll never referee a game again, at least not
I
this
love
year.
that
Yeah.
Schefter report. He will never be seen from again this postseason.
He's done.
Which made me very sad. I understand that most of his games end up being a tire fire, but just hearing Falstowit makes it feel like football. And to not hear Falstowit in a big game, it's a diluted experience.
Whose idea was the quarterback sneak? Because that's who I'm blaming. Was it McCarthy? Was it Kellen Moore in Dak's ear? Let's sneak here.
They said they practiced that.
With 14
the
seconds
QB
left.
draw. Okay, look, guys, though, okay, look. The QB draw, I just can't believe that we talk about it this way. This
is the fun shit.
I know,
Yeah,
but
what are you talking about?
This is the best.
because I imagine myself in this position. And we've practiced it. Imagine our crew.
Would
okay?
you run? What would you do in this
No,
situation?
imagine.
Dan?
I just want to imagine our organizational crew when we always got an offensive lineman like you out there for us, Billy, who's going to run around in circles behind the play, just hoping that it fails.
What?
I'm saying to you that as we come out of the huddle, we practice it a million times, and we've done it 11 seconds every time. But this time, God damn it, because I don't know where that line judge was supposed to be and when he should have touched the ball. This time it took 13 seconds, and instead of throwing into the end zone with 1 second left and looking like we've got a brilliant play to CeeDee Lamb for 24 yards because we practiced it all week, we get made fun of all offseason because we were a second slow with our organizational skills.
Right. Got to slide to the 30, though, Dan. That's the key to that play. Yeah.
You also got to find that official. Yeah. Dak needs to get up. Yeah. Romo said this in the moment.
Awareness.
You need to find that official.
Right.
He put the ball down, and then the official had to go touch the ball.
They didn't give him room to get through.
ESPN did a great job of showing, multiple times Larry Fitzgerald taking the ball in that exact same situation and running it over to the referee so he could touch it, then handing it to his center so his center can put it on the ground. That's what you got to do. They're not prepared.
If anything, you keep someone back there to pick up the ref, jog him down the field, and get him to the line.
It
Do what
was
you gotta do.
amazing. The reported detail of how often they practiced that play was handing the ball to the official not part of the practice. They just thought that they could set their own ball.
Just the official in practice would get there on time because they'd been running the play so often.
It was a terrible play.
I want to know what you want us to be. You want the game to go perfectly. Yeah, we know exactly who the best team is, and we all come in here and say, Dallas is the best team. Like, this is the fun shit. Yeah. We're like, no, he was wrong. No, he was wrong. He should be fired. Let's do this.
I'm a little confused as to how, the conversations about that play, when Dak was largely responsible for how poorly that play went, and we're still fixated on the play and not how bad Dak was during the entire game and the one moment in question. He was terrible that game.
And Stugatz, who for the last 2 months, and I haven't corrected him one time as he has been talking about just how amazing a general manager Jerry Jones now is, ignoring 25 years of he ran off a championship coach and dissolved one of the last great dynasties, one of the things that made them America's team.
He did, but Dan, that team is a talented team. I mean, he helped put it together.
You say that it's a talented team, but I would say to you, Micah Parsons didn't want him. Ended up settling for him. They didn't get the guy they wanted there. Same with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott fell to them. They were trying to get other guys, and those are the guys they ended up getting. Because if you have 25 years of stability in the draft, even Jerry Jones is going to hit some. But you don't question at all that he's giving a press conference after that, and people are now wondering if McCarthy's going to be fired. If that's your general manager, those are the results you've been getting for a quarter century with him owning the team since he ran. That dude has not really forgiven Jimmy Johnson, doesn't actually want to put his name up in the Ring of Honor. Jimmy doesn't believe it'll go up before he's dead. doesn't believe he'll be welcome back. Jerry ran him off, championship coach, and then hired a clown to prove to Jimmy, I can do it with anybody. Here, Barry Switzer. And Switzer ran into the ground but stumbled into one. Stumbled into one in 2 or 3 years and ran it right into the ground, and they haven't been any good since. Jerry Jones is still giving press conference after those games, and we're talking about McCarthy being fired. Because
Right.
you can't fire the guy doing the press conferences, but that team has been, Stugotz, for the attention it's gotten, and that's all he cares about, because the circus and he doesn't even mind the controversies in that sport, because he just wants attention to his product as it makes more and more
And
money.
he gets it, right. Win or lose.
But they're not
right.
any good. They haven't been for 25 years.
No, but I think Jerry views it as a very talented team that he worked very hard in putting together along with Stephen Jones, and that just about any coach would win with a team that's that talented. But he hired Mike McCarthy. Dan, I guarantee you there are good coaches that would win a Super Bowl with that team. That roster is talented enough.
Who hired McCarthy?
Jerry Jones did. I mean, that's on him.
but
I'm
no,
not saying it's
Well,
not.
because
It's
he
totally
needs a
on
puppet
him.
coach. He needs a puppet coach. That's what you're going to get
Right.
when the owner of the team, it's his toy in such an overt way that he's giving press conferences right after the game. What you're going to get is only a coach who at the time had been fired, wasn't going to get back into the game, and was pretending in the interviews to talk about analytics. It's just a guy to go out there so Jerry can run the team, and that's what you get, sloppy clock management at the end.
Are we mad at Jerry or are we mad at Mike McCarthy? I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
The blame in bringing a loop on this entire segment through the journalism and the power that we're talking about.
Are we mad at Flores or Ross?
I don't know.
Who are we mad at?
Everybody.
I just
don't know what we're yelling about. Feel bad for Cully, though.
Now 22 million, man. I'm telling you.
Aruba.
10-win season for the Hawkeyes is pretty good.
Miami, by getting into the money game, one of the places that Nick Saban, you heard me be surprised a couple of days ago, Stugotz, to learn that Doug Marrone, an NFL head coach, was his offensive line coach, Nick Saban's offensive line coach.
Right.
Because these staffs, there's no salary cap there. That's a place that you can spend the money on these $1 million strength coaches, on these $2 million coordinators like Bill O'Brien. And right in front of our eyes at that program, they showed you, wait a minute, we'll rehab all our coaches through here. And now Miami's clearly in the Alabama money game. This is the thing that will threaten Saban. It might not be necessarily Miami, just programs coming after him with this kind of zeal because they realize the inefficiencies in the sport that he's been exploiting.
We've never seen that, though. We've seen people come from lower divisions. A head coaching job in the MAC is a good job. Normally, if you eventually wanted to get to a Power 5 job, you keep making noise in the MAC, as Toledo has. I think in terms of what are considered group of 5 schools, their offense is behind Boise and BYU in terms of most successful programs.
Fun to watch, like
Yeah.
old Texas Tech
disastrous clock management.
offenses.
Yeah, disastrous clock management. Like, they should have beat Notre Dame this year. If you watch Toledo, I really hope to God he's not in charge of clock management. But that is an inspired move if it happens, because we have never seen that. We've seen people come from like FCS to FBS and take a coordinator job there. You have a good job at Toledo. Are you really trying to fast track a path to head coach by being an offensive coordinator?
Well, you surprised me by telling me he was interested, because those jobs,
legit.
this is a guy who is going to be coveted because he's innovative offensively, and you want those guys. But this is the shift that's happening. Miami is about to play SEC football. Stugotz, out of nowhere, the University of Miami has decided it wants in the big money game. And of course, Mike, if you think it through, of course, that's how you change the pay for all of these guys. They just professionalized the positions by Saban having Lane Kiffin run through there and then go run a program. Like he's had more success running people through there than Belichick has with his assistants. Just run them through the car wash of what Alabama football is. And now they've all realized, wait a minute, we can all have $30 million staffs. Remember the story I told you, Mike? Nick Saban wins the Orange Bowl, wins the national championship. On the plane ride home, he is mapping out, I need more. I'm going to ask for it right now. Because Georgia, the trophy was at a Walmart this weekend in Athens, Stugotz. Like that region of the, at a Walmart. Alabama has been a machine, and now all the money is coming for the machine because everyone realizes now the greed, the capitalism, the competitiveness of the SEC is going to be, you're going to see what happens to college football, because it makes sense that now these are more coveted jobs than wide receiver coach in the pros, right?
Before UCF fans get at me, I was just talking about like offensive efficiency numbers with Toledo. I don't mean to disrespect you. Please don't hop in my mentions. I have enough of that. But no, Jason Candle, who did a great job at Mount Union, which is a smaller program with a tremendous bit of success behind it. He went to Toledo, and he's had really good seasons. I think 20-plus wins in 3 seasons, and this would be
You've been
setting a new
betting them
trend.
for 3 seasons.
Yeah.
You've been betting them being underestimated for 3 seasons.
And undoubtedly, he's going to do something at the end with clock management that'll make you rip your hair out, and they'll turn like just like a win into a loss. But
You've been betting those overs too, haven't you? The Toledo overs.
The former Pirates catcher is a coach at Toledo.
Huh.
No, it's Candle, not Kendall.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
What's word association?
Candyman.
With, Jason Kendall. I say ankle.
No batting gloves.
Ooh, really? Ankle for me.
I don't know why I have the word association somewhere in my head on Jason Kendall of urinating on his hands to make his hands calloused. That was
that him or Alou?
That's
it was
Alou.
also
I think it was Alou. Yeah.
I thought that it was Alou, Moises Alou, and Jason Kendall. Am I wrong about this? Because for some reason with Jason Kendall, I think of, I don't know why, maybe it's just a catcher, hard hands, and then I associated it with the urinating on the hands.
So you don't think ankle?
You must be excited to have your University of Miami football team in the game this way, like picking off coaches for coordinators.
No, I mean, it's
They're
all
not
going to
be
blow
able
up.
to do it, right?
It's all going to blow up in a couple of years. Darren Ravel's out there. Salute to Darren Ravel, collector of Rosa Parks cards.
Oh, good God.
How can it blow up, though? I mean,
Hold on, Stugatz. You're just trampling something there. Roy, you didn't feel too good about that one?
fact-checking urination on his hands.
Yeah, no, I did not. It was basically like, oh, my best friends are black,
This
yeah,
is-
that sort of thing.
The rest of the nation, the SEC and the NCAA is not going to allow Miami to compete at the same level as Georgia and Texas A&M. It's becoming abundantly clear. And granted, we don't do ourselves any favors. Hashtag the time is now. Also, thank you for your charitable donations to the University of Miami and contributions to NIL. But we do this thing loudly. Dan Lambert, the second that the NCAA pushed back on him, he gave the quote, bleep the NCAA. He didn't bleep himself. Like, we do this louder than everybody else. We bring more attention, and we have to play by different rules. And unfortunately, I have nothing but to believe that the NCAA will come down on Miami for doing the exact same shit that everybody else does, just doing it more loudly.
I don't see anything about Jason Kendall peeing on his hands.
It never happened.
Did you Google Rosa Parks cards?
I'm on it.
I want to talk about that Ravel story, though. Thank you, Stugatz. You can find me for getting it wrong on the urination, but do you want to talk about the Rosa Parks story? Do you want to talk about the Darren Ravel story they were trying to tee up there?
I mean, I didn't hear any of their conversation, but feel free.
So
I mean,
where
carry on.
Where the persecution complex of, we were talking about the persecution complex of Miami Hurricanes fans. Darren Ravel was out there kind of publicly lamenting the fact that Miami and John Ruiz have all these NIL deals specifically to keep kids out of the portal. And it's the same stuff that other schools do, but you never really see it on your timeline. And you certainly don't see like Dick Vitale raising a fist when other schools do this. It's always a Miami problem. So Miami Hurricanes Twitter, which has become rather unpleasant really quickly.
Can I stop you for just a second? Because I don't think people are so annoyed by your University of Miami Homer guy, and now you have accrued power. You are a golden cane. And so people might assign to you persecution complex or bias, but you have been sort of hardened through your fandom. You care about this program, and they're going to hear what you're saying and say, come on, enough with the persecution complex. So I want to offer the context of you finding this funny as you head into the mouth of the machine and you now see from inside, as people throw around money and try to be competitive about this stuff, that it's always been that way with the University of Miami. There was a Yahoo story when University of Miami and Nevin Shapiro were doing all the things that everybody else was doing, in which they mentioned an abortion. The program was shamed for an abortion because a player got an abortion. They weren't reporting that stuff at other programs. So Mike's scars on this are earned, even though he does probably sound like a wimpy, annoying guy I'm guessing annoys the audience.
Well, noisy audience, but I didn't give them that lengthy background. I was just trying to move on with Darren Ravel doesn't come out of the shadows unless it's Miami. It's irrefutable. So Darren Ravel got dragged by Miami fans, and people discovered all these old MLK tweets. Just, when I say Darren Ravel, you kind of know who the guy is. Like, if there's anything in the news stream, he finds a way to make it about himself. It's like reveling. He's become a verb. And he enters this Twitter Spaces that a lot of prominent Miami Hurricanes Twitter accounts were taking part of, and he revealed that he is a big-time memorabilia collector of Black history items. And I'm not going to say I don't believe him, but it just continues to pour gasoline on the raging, almost insincere fire of one Darren Ravel.
Is Jason Kendall a Hall of Famer?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, a professional hitter, 286 career hitter,
You know what
over
happened?
2,000 hits, a bunch of Gold Gloves, solid player,
You know what happened?
3-time All-Star.
That's not a Hall of Famer.
No,
Solid
he's in the
player.
no batting
Yeah,
gloves. Hall of
200
Fame.
wins gets you in the Hall of Fame now.
200. 200.
I'm telling you, it's changed. Everything's changed.
What do
What do you mean 200 wins?
I'm
What are
just
you
saying.
talking about?
I'm just saying. All the numbers have gone down. It's not 300 career hitter. 288 is just fine. That will get you into the Hall of
What's
Fame.
200 wins? He doesn't-
200 wins is the new 300 wins. 2,000 hits is the new 3,000 hits. I'm telling you, that's the way it's working in Cooperstown. I'm just telling you. I mean,
When he was on the ballot, he got 2 votes.
see,
Billy-
Mike Sweeney got 3.
I mean,
boom.
What do you mean C? That he's ineligible?
he's
close.
you said he's a solid player. I still
He
don't.
should come up again. Now that the numbers have changed.
Dan, what I'm trying to tell you is all the numbers have come down.
Yeah.
Like it's no longer, there's no lock. 3,000
Stugotz,
hits, 300 wins.
I want to
It's,
stop
you know,
you.
Doesn't happen.
Veterans committee,
okay,
maybe.
Stugotz, if I may, what happened there? Kendall wouldn't get 200 wins. What are you talking about? What does 200 wins mean? Are you reading WAR incorrectly?
No,
what is
no.
happening here with 200 wins?
What I'm saying is 300 wins used to guarantee that you'd be in the Hall of Fame. 3,000 hits used to guarantee that you'd be in the Hall of Fame. And now I'm telling you that 200 wins can get you in, 2,000 hits can get you in, and Jason Kendall has 2,200 hits.
He's not getting into the Hall of
Oh,
Fame.
He
Well,
he's
he
not.
didn't. He got 2 votes,
got
and he
2
was
votes.
taken off the ballot.
Yeah.
But
he-
Veterans
got
committee,
robbed.
yeah.
But he would have been on his way.
It's Howard Bryant's fault for not voting.
We're not for the ankle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good
You know what,
point.
Totally
Billy?
nuked him.
Cut the
th-
career
Billy,
short. Yeah.
thank you, Billy. Let's see if Howard Bryant will allow us to do a protest vote on his behalf, where we just throw a bunch of Jason Kendalls in there, because we need the Veterans Committee to. We need to create some noise around the Hall of Fame. Let's see if we can pollute Howard Bryant.
Well, he's wasting his ballot. Let's be honest.
Mike, beyond what you were just saying about Ravel, I think there was a Twitter back and forth where he also responded to somebody saying, I have a lot of black friends, or some of my best friends are black, and I have one of the world's biggest MLK collections.
Yeah, so here's sound from Darren Ravel on the Twitter Spaces after he was getting dragged on MLK Day. And this all was birthed out of Miami Hurricanes Twitter finding that screen cap tweet because he went at the Miami Hurricanes for them doing what everybody else does. So here it culminates in this Twitter Spaces.
I have over 9 MLK signed items. I am a humongous fan of what he's done. And over the last 7 years, I've collected a lot of things. It's not only MLK, it's a lot of Black history. I own a Rosa Parks signed NAACP card. So it was pretty shocking today how I was called racist when I am a student and lover of Black history, and it was I never expected the reaction that I got today. I'm sorry if people think that a white man can't enjoy Black history.
All right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I really am. I'm sorry if people think that a white man can't love Martin Luther King. But to me, that seems pretty counterintuitive.
When he says he owns over 9, does he mean 10?
It's unbelievable.
I truly believe he's a performance artist. I think it's all a bit with Darren Ravel.
It can't be, Mike. I would if he were in on the joke, if this were Colbert in the business empire reporting on business, because business people do not respect him, but he is America's preeminent sports business reporter.
This is my favorite Sacha Baron Cohen character. I'll say that right now. Darren Ravel
I
is
wish
a
it were
brilliant performance
I wish
artist.
it were a bit. I wish that 20 years from now, like the
I'm sorry that a white man has an affinity for Black history. He has an autographed Rosa Parks NAACP card. Seems pretty counterintuitive.
I'm telling you, 25 years from now, he's gonna rip
I'm
off
the least racist person you know, because I have the world's largest Black History Memorabilia Museum. It's perfect. He's incredible. Where does he display this?
I'm sorry that a white man can enjoy Black history.
He didn't seem
I
like
have
he
over
was.
9.
He didn't seem terribly sorry.
Yelling.
I love.
It seems like he has 9, right? If you, I
I
have
think he has
over 9.
9.
He's thinking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
getting
he
an over
has
10.
One torn in half. That's what he has.
I have approximately 10.
You're of the belief that he is going to tear off his head 25 years from now. He's been wearing a Purdue Boilermakers mascot head for 25 years.
It does kind of look like that.
To reveal that he is a paid actor, it would be so great. It'd be better than Andy Kaufman. It'd be like the best thing we've ever
Why
seen.
does this sound so funny? Because he must be so confused by this. Because
Yes.
what he is saying, it doesn't like
Well,
to him. I can understand
this-
why he's like, why is this funny?
He's like, right. But I love the idea that he thinks it defends him against racism.
He pulls up his black friend's name in his phone, and he's like, hey, let me play some sound for you. Because they're saying I'm right. How is this racist?
I have over 9 MLK signed items. I am a humongous fan of what he's done. And over the last 7 years, I've collected a lot of things. It's not only MLK, it's a lot of Black history. I own a Rosa Parks signed NAACP card. So it was pretty shocking today how I was called racist when I am a student and lover of Black history. And I never expected the reaction that I got today. I'm sorry if people think that a white man can't enjoy Black history.
All right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I really am. I'm sorry if people think that a white man can't love Martin Luther King. But to me, that seems pretty counterintuitive.
In closing, the U is absolutely back. And you're welcome, because you need us to be this. You really do.
He thinks he's right, is what the beauty of it is. I wish, Mike, can you imagine at the negotiating table, wherever it is that one discovers the Rosa Parks NAACP card, but the idea that you could actually have a race card in your pocket to protect you from racism.
An actual card?
He has the race card.
A victory last night for Stugotz. J.J. Watt does all that work to get back for that. Arizona never in the game. The Rams just end up dragging them. But I wanted to ask you, Stugotz, because it doesn't matter that the quality of the product gets diluted by the extra games. You had a Monday Night Football playoff game. More football expanding. You had a Manning cast last night. And I wanted to ask you not about the details of that game, although I imagine some of those you'll find interesting. Kyler Murray has been a bit of a puzzle late in seasons. I thought that team at 10-2 was as good as any, and then they flame out like that. But last night on the Manning cast, Russell Wilson joined them. So did The Rock. And I wonder if the people listening to this care that the game is about to change in how you consume sports and the number of options you have on where you're consuming sports, especially now as Apple is getting into live sports. It's being reported ready to spend billions on live sport, and all of these athletes are noticing that they can cash in on their brands. Russell Wilson went on the Manning cast last night, but only on the condition that they not ask him anything about the thing everyone wants to know about, which is his career over when he's putting up light at the end of the tunnel and he's running through a tunnel. Is he trying to tell us on social media that he is gone and the days are over in Seattle? And I just ask you in the audience, do you care? Do you want Russell Wilson? Say nothing Russell Wilson.
Right.
Say nothing Russell Wilson, because for a long time he gets out there and says nothing. In exchange for his stardom joining your broadcast, are you willing to make the journalistic exchange of, okay, we won't ask you about the thing that everybody wants to ask you about?
I mean, I am, but I'm probably in the minority on that. I mean, I don't care if Russell Wilson talks about his future, whether he wants to be in Seattle. I care about, learning about a different side of Russell Wilson, seeing his personality come out. And if Peyton and Eli could do that, and they generally do with most of their guests, I'm okay with that. I don't need news to be broken on that show. I just want to enjoy the show. That's it.
Also harsh, in my opinion, to say that Russell Wilson is a say-nothing in this particular format. In my view, the best the Manning cast was all season was the fourth quarter of one of the Monday Night Football games where it was close late, and I think it went to overtime, and they were breaking down the game, and he was genuinely insightful. There's like 15% of cliche fat you can cut from Russell Wilson, but when I saw him on the guest list, I was excited and was hoping that game would be close late because I know that they would bring him on late and it would be good television. So I wasn't thinking about it in terms of they should ask him the question.
Fair point, because when I do say nothing, Russell Wilson, the big controversy was he claimed at one point that his bubbled water cured concussions. But he has gone his entire career as sort of a robot of quarterback interview, never welcome into your huddle a controversy with your spoken word. He's boring on purpose. Like, I don't think he's actually uninteresting. I think he's shown us nothing in disguise and just built a real image machine based on, you know what, I'll just play well and not have opinions on anything. And then over the last, as he's become an adult, gotten married, had kids, become someone who's found his voice as a professional, he has said more and more. But I would think if you're having, it's a good point by you. I would think, though, that you'd want to hear, is Russell Wilson going to end up somewhere else? Because I thought everybody wanted to know about the transactions.
If I get it there, great. But if I don't, I'm not going to sit there and be upset about it. I mean, I just want to see Russell Wilson interact with Peyton and Eli.
So is there any place that I can put the terms, Stugotz, on what an interview guest is requiring from compromise on you can't ask me about this before you're like, oh, no, never mind? Is there anything? Is there anyone that I can do that with? Or can you just do these interviews and not care because they're not journalists? They're not pretending to be journalists.
I can, but you can't. It'd be an issue for you. It would not be like if O.J. Simpson came on and said, don't ask me about the murder, I'd be okay with that. You would not. You would have to ask him. The alleged murder. I'm sorry.
It was a murder. I think it was conclusively proven to be a murder.
Yeah, you're right about that.
But if he wanted to come on under those conditions, I'd be fine. You would not. I'd be okay with it.
Mike, why is your head in your hands? What is happening there?
I mean, what do you want me to tell you?
Just want to talk mock drafts with the juice?
Fantasy, mock drafts, Hertz commercials. That's what I talk about with OJ.
Haven't we
turned Naked Gun? I mean,
you're probably talking too much right now.
Yeah, probably.
Haven't we turned down O.J. Simpson because of this in the past? We don't agree.
You've also interviewed O.J. Simpson.
We have.
No, but I think that there are always people who arrive here who are offering compromises where they're like, well, you can get famous person X, but you can't ask about this. This is not something, and we've never taken them, I don't think.
No. Let me think. No. Unless it's something that we're genuinely not interested in. Yeah, there have been a handful of cases where someone comes to the interview and I'm like, well, I don't like having any parameters for an interview. Dan is genuinely uninterested in discussing this, so we'll move forward.
The reason I'm asking you is because of the standard. I believe that Stugotz speaks for most on this. I don't care. Just get me Russell Wilson. I'd like to hear from Russell Wilson. And I'm wondering if we're guarding a standard that nobody cares about, that nobody in the audience cares about, because they just want you to get the guests and make whatever compromises it is you have to make in order to talk to the famous person.
Do you think the audience would be upset with us if we had Aaron Rodgers on and did talk about the COVID stuff?
Oh, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
But do you think they'd be upset?
I couldn't and wouldn't do it.
I understand that, but do you think the audience would be upset?
Yes.
I know you can't do it. They'd be upset with you?
Yes.
I don't know.
In fact, he wouldn't get dragged. I would. Like, that's why McAfee is a safe space. It's why the MVP of the league hasn't appeared with us the way he normally does, I would assume. And I'm guessing we're not going to hear from him because they did ask. And what was the response? They asked you.
I've asked several times, and they just said, not now. Not a good time. Love Dan, love Stu, love the show, not a good time.
No, but you came to me and asked me, you've never done this before.
Right.
You came to me and you asked me, hey, if you have to, they wanted to know They wanted to know whether I would ask, and I said I would.
Yeah, of course.
And we haven't had him since.
No, we haven't.
And I don't think anybody cares.
But you've had Aaron Rodgers in the past, and you don't ask him the one question prior to the whole immunized controversy that other people were interested in because you genuinely didn't have interest in the whole drama of will you or won't you come back to Green Bay?
I loved one of my favorite things at ESPN is that we would interview Aaron Rodgers, who didn't want to be interviewed by ESPN, didn't want his brand controlled by somebody else, wanted to control his own thinking and voice and thought.
Right.
And we did not ask him the questions that would end up on SportsCenter.
Right. While we're genuinely following our own curiosities, we're also kind of doing a bit because it is a little bleep you. And while you're doing that, you're also appeasing him. So we're not without blame here.
I do think that Whittingham is right, though. If you can get the analysis, one of the things that I don't know if you guys care about this, it's the big broadcast in America. It's Sunday night. NBC gets it cheaper than all the other places get it because it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Sunday night football in America. Drew Brees won't criticize anybody or anything. Drew Brees is going to have a spectacular robo-quarterback career as broadcaster that no one will have any good reason to listen to.
I'm not sure it'll be spectacular, though. You've got to say stuff. And they dropped the ball on that whistle that sounded they didn't even talk about it.
They went 5 minutes.
5 minutes,
and
yeah.
then after going 5 minutes, they said, well, we heard it, but we just didn't say anything. Both Tirico and him were, I don't know if they were pretending that they heard it, but 5 minutes they went without talking about what was clearly some sort of unrest on the field. Can you guys tell me if I'm wrong, though? Because both controversial calls that were the only things talked about in football, both of them, I thought to myself, man, there's so much crap going on in those games. So much crap. We're really going to the Bengals only advanced over that Raiders team that overcame all that and was thrown into the end zone at the end the way that you knew they would be. That team that has overcome all of that, we're going to make it about a referee's whistle and not what, we're going to make it about the one thing there, even though I don't think, am I wrong when I say, man, that was going to be a touchdown either way. That was going to be a touchdown whether that whistle was a microscopic moment before or not.
You heard the whistle on mute?
I think my initial reaction to the whistle was that of Mike Tirico and Drew Brees. I heard it. It seemed as though people stopped, but did it truly impact the play? But I don't think that's what the discussion is. The discussion is it's a rule, and there seemed to be malleability with a rule that's black and white. Why are we making this concession? Now, if we're going to be subjective about things going forward and apply human logic and be like, oh, well, if you see on the replay, Burrow made an outstanding play and the receiver would have been open either way, fine, but that's just not what the rule is. It's inconsistent, and it was a one-score game ultimately. The point difference was 7 points. It probably would have gotten a field goal if they didn't get the touchdown there, but it impacted the game severely. It is a little odd that we're talking about that and not the weird decision to give up 25% of your chances in the end zone late in the game by running a spike play to clock it. I thought that was a huge misstep.
But, Mike, on the whistle play, it did appear like the D-back, he pulled up a little bit. Even the wide receiver who caught the football kind of pulled. He didn't even celebrate. He didn't know what was going on.
It's the rule.
Yeah.
It's the rule. It wouldn't have been fair to Cincinnati in that moment because I'm not – I don't truly know how the whistle impacted the play. It looked like it still would have been a touchdown, but the rule's the rule.
You're right about this. And the reason I think all of this is interesting beyond whatever is the sports debate of the day that we can argue about, because the content machine needs to be fed, and the football sucked this weekend. And there were two things that we can yell about in games that had millions of things. And you're right, that if the intent is to follow just the black and white letter of the law, the right call there is the play is immediately dead. That is not a touchdown. It was a huge 3rd and 4 play. Changed a lot of things about how the game would have gone. It was a great play by Burrow. But why have judges at all if all you're going to do is interpret the black and white of the rules? And this is where it gets interesting to me because now gambling's in play. And Mike mentioned something important there. That is a difference in the spread. The spread was 5.5 or 6. That game was decided by 7. The Raiders played a game worthy of covering that spread. And a call went Cincinnati's way that changed that game and may have ended what was a pretty resilient Raiders season. And that's where you can't allow the subjectivity of the referees to come into play because the rules can't be bought. The referees can be bought. And then you can't have this in your cycle where the league immediately says, how often do you see this? The league immediately says, oh, you're not going to see that officiating crew for a while. And it's like a fraction of a second on a mistake. I don't know why it happened, but it was a half a second mistake by the referee thinking, I guess that Burrow was out of bounds.
But do you remember? Well, the league didn't say that. Schefter did. So someone at the league told Schefter that. What the league said in their official statement was, once again, doing what they did in that Chicago Bears Monday night game, was lie to us. They put out in an official letterhead, the whistle came after the play. No, it goddamn didn't. They're just flatly lying to you.
Smack in the middle of it.
They're lying on their official letterhead, and then afterwards leaking out, well, Jerome Boger and his crew are not going to officiate because they botched it. And it's the same thing that happened with that Monday night game where they back the official publicly, but behind the scenes they admit their guilt.
I want the audience, though, and I want you guys to see, because this is the thing I've been talking about this morning when I keep asking you about the ability to discern the truth. Stugotz, when we get into some of the muck on this, on where it is that people can be bought, if Caesars buys Schefter, if Caesars tries to get in the gambling game by running up the price on ESPN by buying their information guy, Schefter, if they run it up, you realize now, on company letterhead with referees and gambling now this close to the game, this is what the officials who ran this sport until recently were trying to keep gambling away from their sports at all costs. But now there is a cost, and this is the cost. That you're going to have the integrity of things and the truth of things assaulted from every side by money temptation. I'm not saying that that's what's happening here. I don't know what's happening here, but they lied on their letterhead. You heard the whistle. You heard when the whistle was. Don't tell me that I didn't hear a whistle. I heard the whistle and had people on the field stop. It made me think, why aren't fans all bringing whistles to the game? You can totally control your bets, and also you'll get kicked out. You'll get into a lot of trouble, but you could decide a playoff game with a whistle.
I'm certain fans have tried that before. I mean, someone's had to try that before, right? There's no way no one's ever tried that before. I'm going to try it if no one's ever tried it before.
It actually worked once. There was a France national team friendly where someone brought a whistle to the stadium, blew the whistle for full time, and everyone stopped playing from like the top row of the stadium. It was incredible.
Since, though, we are now in the gambling business, I should let the audience know that Stugotz had 5 teams to a 6-team parlay last night. $50 to win almost $3,000. He had money lines in there. All he needed was Arizona to not shit the bed.
Yeah.
And Chris Cody was delighted hearing about being 5 teams to a 6-team parlay. Mike, what's the biggest parlay you have ever hit? Most teams, because that is the single best bet I have ever won in my life, was a 6-team parlay.
So this is probably might be considered cheating because they do open parlays. So the biggest parlay I've ever hit, to answer your question, is like 13 teams. But that's a progressive parlay where I keep it open. I'm like, I don't really know where this is going to go, but let me get Chiefs money line, Saints money line, Seahawks money line, and I'll figure it out at the end of the season. And that's when I've kind of hit it big. I've also had like terrible heartbreaks in that too.
You never hedge.
But no.
Well,
no.
wait a second. You opened it up like week 1, and then you could close it whenever you feel like it?
I've tried that.
Okay.
I was like, you know what? I'm bound if I do 17 team parlays. One of them's got to hit by the end of the year, and it'll pay for all of them.
That's where the teasers always get me. The teasers always get me.
I
that
love
way.
a good teaser,
I
man.
lose the teasers all the time where they give you 12 points extra on a spread, and all you got to do is hit 4 teams, and you're like, I'll do this, and the NFL bleeps me every time on that. They tempt me every time, and I lose every time.
The Packers couldn't lose to the Lions, surely.
Yeah.
That's how those teasers go. Is you look at the slate and you go, well, who couldn't lose?
My logic was, well, it's a survivor pool, but I get to pick the same team over and over again if I'd like. How am I going to lose this? Inevitably, I lose, but I have hit on like one big one that way.
So, Mike, if you had a $50 16 parlay that could have won you $3,300, would you hedged that, correct? correct?
In that particular instance, where it's a Monday night, where it's just two teams that you simply cannot trust.
Because you're playing. Well, that's what I was doing. Right. No, I did it in the right order. I got it to the game I wanted to get it to, the last game, obviously, and I had to hedge it because that's the game I had the least amount of confidence
I
in.
made like 9 bets on that Monday night game. I only cashed Cooper Kupp to score a touchdown because I trusted Cliff Kingsbury more than I trusted Matthew Stafford, and I was just dead wrong.
Stugotz came in here today willing to give Stafford 4 rings if he wins the title this year. If he goes through these quarterbacks in the playoffs and wins the title, wins his first playoff game yesterday.
I want to be honest. I came in here thinking I'd give him 2 rings for it. So here's what he has to do, okay? On the road against Brady, on the road against Aaron Rodgers, and probably Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I said I would give him 2 rings for that. Roy said he would give him 4. I stopped and thought about it for a second. I'm willing to go up to 4. I am with Roy Bellamy on this. Stafford will become one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time if he wins 3 more games.
Can he go through Brady? Is there a way to just make his way into the Tampa game and go through Brady as well while he's over there?
Well, he has Tampa this weekend, so he has to go through Brady.
Okay, I'm sorry. I missed Brady. So you're saying it's Brady, Mahomes, Rodgers.
It's Brady first, and then if he wins that and Green Bay wins, which they probably will, he would have to go to Lambeau to beat Aaron Rodgers on the road, and then Patrick Mahomes, in all likelihood, in a Super Bowl. That's worth 4 rings, Dano. I mean,
or Tannehill in a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Or Garoppolo.
No, then he only gets a ring, okay?
I read somewhere that there hasn't been a second half lead change since Jared Cook's fumble at the goal line in the Saints-Bucks game. That the playoff games have been like terribly boring. But I look at this bracket now in the divisional round.
Amazing.
It looks incredible.
Amazing.
And it's irrefutable. I defy you to give me a better argument. These are the best 8 teams in the NFL.
Maybe the Vikings. Maybe the Vikings.
We got there. But we got to the best 8 teams in the NFL. And the 2 games that were kind of good, when you were looking at the slate, you were like, you would make the argument that Cardinals-Rams is probably like the tightest game of that group. But the other games that you thought would be good, Raiders-Bengals, was.
This is why football always wins, though, Mike. They ate up the news stream. I don't think a lot of people are talking about what crappy football it was. They're giving us the content for 2 days of stakes. And now on Monday night, it was a crappy game. I don't understand what the hell happened to Kyler Murray, but I have something to talk about. Do I trust the Rams? How is it that you can have such disparate results when the Cardinals play the Rams? You're telling me we got to the best teams, but what I saw through 12 games, the best team got knocked out last night. What I saw through 9 or 10 or 11 games when I thought, wait, Arizona's only losing when Murray's hurt.
Right.
That's not the team I saw last night. They looked like they had not improved at all.
There was a time where I think we all said that the one thing we know about the NFL this season was that Arizona was good. There was a time not too long ago, maybe 6-7 weeks ago, where everyone was saying that. But the NFL wins, Dan, especially this weekend, because, yes, for the most part, lousy football games, but the one game they needed to be interesting, the one team they needed to be interesting and lose was the Dallas Cowboys, and they got it.
It's funny that you say that, though, because the game, right, we're in agreement with this. They gave us the thing to talk about because they rallied, but the game itself was not good, and that is not the best offense in the league that I was promised. I was promised the best offense in the league, and really – the distortions in this sport are such, Stugotz, that I believe I could tell the audience this and not get too much in the way of rebuttal. If I tell you right now that the Super Bowl is healthy 49ers and healthy Titans, you'd probably say, yeah, I understand how they got there, because when the 49ers have been healthy the last 3 years, they overwhelm people, even though Garoppolo's not much of quarterback. And what they don't want in the final round is Tannehill against Garoppolo.
No.
They want their stars.
Of course.
And now you get back into the gambling, Stugotz, on things that leagues want to happen and suspicious results and all that stuff. And I don't think people realize how much this stuff is going to change over the next 10 years now that the gambling money is out in the sunlight. Because, Mike, I thought it was audacious, even by the standards of the NFL, where they go from we don't want Kaepernick to we were so wrong just when the black quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, looks like he's on the verge of mutiny. How the hell do you come out of this weekend and put on company letterhead that whistle was after the catch?
It's just post-truth.
You allowed a touchdown that wasn't touchdown in a game that decided that Raiders season. That includes like a bigot. It includes a bigot coach being eliminated. Now Mayock's out there. Would Mayock be out if they make a Super Bowl run?
Probably not.
But the thing is that leagues don't buy themselves by admitting when they're wrong. Like, the NBA has had the last 2-minute report for several years, and all the players after that gets released go, I don't want to know. You're just upsetting me after the fact. You can't change it. Like, I do think leagues feel like they can't admit when they're wrong, because then you mentioned the gambling that ruins the credibility of it. Players don't like it. Coaches don't like it. Fans don't like it because you can't go back and redo it.
I wanted to ask you, and I didn't do this, man, and this is my fault. I didn't do this, man, the courtesy, the interim coach for the Raiders, of learning how to pronounce his last name. I saw, though, on social media that he was posted writing handwritten letters to his players, thanking them for the season.
Nice touch.
It is a nice touch, but I also thought to myself, how much of a nice touch is it when from that camera angle somebody had to be taking the picture for you and posting it on social media so people would know what a nice touch you have handwriting letters.
He's got to be going with like 6 messages, right? And he just disperses them to which one deserves which one.
There's too many players to have original messages.
Like-
It's like the wedding thank yous where you're like, okay, well, this is the category for this thank you note. This is what you get for this. This is what you get for that.
He wrote them out 10 of each. He had like 6 different things he was going to say. He wrote 10 of each of them, and then he just put a player's name at the start of it.
Oh, so you don't think you even put the name on it? You
I
just
think
put
he-
the name on the envelope.
I think he had all his notes, and it was like, all right, all of my notes are written. This one feels right for Derek Carr. This one's good
No,
for
Derek Carr gets a special one.
Yeah. Customized, yes.
Waller
He
gets
threw
a
pick
special
at the
one.
end, man.
He also had an insane throw on 3rd down that will just be completely forgotten, Derek Carr, in that game.
He had so many insane throws this season.
What is
BGTs.
Derek Carr?
I don't know.
That's it right there. Your analysis was great right there. What is Derek Carr? And what about the Raiders for the last 20 years? What are the Raiders?
If you get one of those notes from Coach, no, like how long? Well, yeah, you obviously take a picture and you start comparing to see if he is actually writing the same note. But also, like, how long do you hold on to that for? Like, if he
It's
gets
going on the
let
fridge.
go,
It's going on the fridge
yeah,
for
but
at
if
least
he
the
gets let
offseason.
go, are you like, okay, like now this can kind of be purged? Also, I don't need this anymore.
Billy, did you find the writing of wedding thank yous stressful?
Of course, it's really stressful, and you have like a limited window of time where it's socially acceptable to send them in. If you go too far, then people get upset. And then there's like, well, I'm just not going to send them, and then that upsets people too.
Can we stop thank you notes? Let's start a thing right now to stop thank you notes. I mean, it's just like, do you ever get a thank you
Change
note and you're
over.
like, I'm touched by that? You're just like, you get it, you throw it away.
How about you thank me for inviting you? I mean, I provided you with free alcohol, free dinner, free food, free entertainment. How about a thank you from you to me?
Well, that's the gift.
Oh.
Stugatz doesn't understand how giving works. Ron, Mike went to the zoo yesterday.
I know, and I missed him, and I feel like a real schmuck because I missed him. I was doing interviews, and then he came, and when I got back, it was out in park. I'm just a schmuck. I'm
That
a
was
horrible.
one of your bigger days, right? Because it was packed, dude.
Gorgeous day.
I've never seen the zoo that packed.
Great zoo day.
Well, what happened was it rained on Sunday, so Sunday everybody planning to go out Sunday had the holiday yesterday doubled up.
Have you noticed a lot of people wear Ron McGill T-shirts to the zoo? I saw 3 different people wearing a Ron McGill World of Suey shirt.
I have seen them. I have not seen a lot of them, but I have seen them. The last thing I saw that was pretty incredible, the Rontosaurus thing, was I need to get a print of that. I need to get a signed print of that for my office.
You underestimate your popularity with our audience. We've been doing this a long time, and I mean, in Q rating, likability factor, I don't know that we've had a guest that people like more, period, around us than just universally, right? It's not polarizing. It's like some people might love Greg Cody more, but beloved, we don't have someone more beloved than you around here. I don't think. You or Kirchin, maybe.
That's very kind of you, Dan. I think they just love animals. It has nothing to do with me.
Oh, stop! You're being humble. Ron, what are the busiest days at the zoo? Like, are they holiday, like weekdays that are holidays kind of thing?
Holidays and our big weekends are the Easter weekend and the Halloween weekend. Those are the biggest weekends at the zoo, where we get 30,000 people out here in a weekend.
You said you were doing interviews. What were you doing interviews about?
Doing interviews about iguanas falling out of trees with the cold weather coming in, doing interviews about the bald eagle cam and the eagle chicks and how they're developing and how they've gotten this now worldwide audience that's kind of gone viral, which has been great. Just did a Weather Channel interview with them this morning, as a matter of fact, national.
I want to talk to you about both of those things because I think we've told the story before here. Pat Riley, accidentally, not knowing the area, found in his backyard a bunch of frozen iguanas who had frozen stiff to ward off the cold, and he buried them, thinking they were dead and that he was doing a nice thing, and instead he killed them.
Murderer! Murderer, Pat Riley!
What a visual that is of Pat Riley in his backyard with a shovel.
But a lot of people do that, I imagine.
Yeah, I think I've told the story before. When it first started happening, I remember I was working on Key Biscayne, and this guy is, from Central America, where iguana is a delicacy. I mean, they farm them out there like food. And this guy was getting these huge iguanas that were falling out of trees and stuff all along Crandon Boulevard. He's throwing them in the back of his old paneled station wagon. And as he's paneled the station wagon, he's got the heat on inside. They started to come to life, and he wrecked his car. I mean, they started to come to life and running all over the car, and he ran his car into a freaking coconut tree in Crandon Boulevard, freaking out because all of these zombie iguanas came to life.
The best move to do with the shovel is when you get it into the ground, just the tip of it, and then you step down that step, and it goes all the way in. You guys love that.
Chris.
It's satisfying.
Chris.
You love that, Ron.
Chris.
Ron, have you tried iguana? Have you tried it?
I have. I've eaten it in Panama, as a matter of fact, on a farm there, and it's actually pretty good. I'm not going to say it tastes like chicken.
Oh, come on.
It tastes like whatever seasoning they put on it, and they season it pretty well.
Ooh.
I was really disappointed. Moreover, my daughter was extremely disappointed that the tortoises were not out yesterday because it was.
Oh, because it's cold.
It's
cold.
It's air quotes Miami cold. By the time we went around to that exhibit,
74.
it was
on
about
them, you know?
74, and I
Yeah.
was regretting
Right.
my wardrobe decision.
But the problem
I
is,
hate
Mike,
that.
those things weigh up to over 500 pounds a piece. We have to herd them into that shelter, and then as you saw, we have to keep them locked in there with the boards because they are not the brightest bulbs in the chandelier. And what happens is they'll walk out again, and then it gets so cold they start slowing down, and they can't get back to the heat, and they'll stay stuck out there. And we cannot hurt. I mean, we literally have to use like forklifts to move them. So we keep them in there because we knew last night was going to be cold again too. We said, listen, you're just staying in for the day because you're too not smart enough to go back in on your own.
Is it that, or is it you guys just didn't want to move those turtles a couple times? That's what I'm hearing.
It's stressful to move them, Billy. We
Yeah,
don't
for
want to
you guys.
stress them.
Yeah, for you guys, it sounds like a lot of work. Just put a sweater
It's
on
stressful
them.
for them too, okay? They're not used to being picked up.
Too not smart is the most damning insult I have ever heard. Ron McGill. Ron McGill is frustrated with these damn old, heavy things. These tortoises. You've never said that. I've never heard you come that close to calling an animal dumb. You yell at me every time I say that the bald eagle is dumb, and the owl is dumb. There are all sorts of dumb animals out
owl
there.
is
Just not very
wise.
intelligent.
No,
There's
the-
a difference.
the
It's
owl
just
is a
not very
dumbass.
intelligent.
You have buyer's remorse on the turtles because you're like, these things live like 200 years. This seemed like a good idea 60
We
years
have
ago, but
one
now
here
what do
that's-
we do?
The one that we have here, Goliath, is estimated to be 130 years old.
And when you got it, you were like, this will be cute. People come see it for 20, 30 years. And now you're like, what the hell do I do with this turtle?
That's why you don't work at the zoo, Billy.
Ron, come on.
No, Billy.
Just between us, there's been animals that you've been like, it's time.
Enough already.
It's time.
Yeah, we get it.
Billy.
Occupying space.
Billy, come on. What? Ron doesn't.
People do that with their pets, Dan.
No,
You
but
think
this-
pets don't actually go to, wherever to the farm or wherever it is. Sometimes people just get tired of the pets and then the pet goes
I believe
pound or
unless an
whatever.
animal is in pain, there is no circumstance under which Ron would want it dead.
No, no. I'm not going to want an animal dead unless, like Dan says, it's in profound suffering without any sign of relief, any possibility of relief. I do not wish that. And I've been bitten, I've been kicked, I've been hurt by animals that I've helped raise that have hurt me, but it's always been my fault. I realize that.
What's the plan with Dan Lebitard?
Levitard is doing well. He's big now. I mean, he's picked up some tonnage.
Yeah,
He's
he
a
has.
big, you got to come out and see him.
man. Jeez.
No, I'm serious. He looks really good.
I know.
But his plan is for the girlfriend. I think it's in Virginia. He's got an arranged marriage, so to speak, in Virginia. So I think as soon as temperatures settle down a little bit, they're talking about that. That was what the stud bookkeeper said. That Dan's got to go up there and do the wild hippo with I don't know what her name is.
You're saying that Dan Lebitard has a young partner?
Yes. I don't know if she's younger or older than he is.
I mean,
but
if I know Dan Levitard the way that I do, it's
Yeah.
much younger.
Can we stream it
A
like
lot younger.
Can we stream it like we did with the Eagles?
Hippo porn?
People would want to watch this.
Call it hip porn.
Hip
Porn.
porn.
Hippo sex is really good. It's really fun.
Oh, really?
Hell yeah,
Hell
it is.
yeah, I believe that's
No,
mine.
dude,
Oh, yeah.
what animals
You
have
just
the
got in
best
there as a
dance?
proud hippo real quick there, Chris. When I believe that's you've never been so proud to a hippo. What are you doing?
I need top 3 sexual experiences and bottom 3 for Ron McGill in the animal kingdom.
What?
Well, the top 3, I got to tell you something. You got to look at something like the rhino, which will mount the female, but there is no pelvic thrusting. In the pachyderms, like the lions, the hippos, the elephants, there's no pelvic thrusting. So it's like, well, we're on a podcast. I can say this. The vagina of the female, it's got like a bunch of like little elves in it. So when the penis is inserted, it's the walls kind of like they're stroking that thing where the animal doesn't have to do any pelvic thrusting. So the vaginal walls are doing the stroking. And with a rhino, the rhino will mount the female sometimes for an hour at a time, and he'll be ejaculating like every 2 to 5 minutes. And it's fantastic because he'll sit up there and people will ask me, they go, Ron, how do you know he's ejaculating? Well, look, what he'll do, he'll be on top of this female, and basically she's carrying his entire weight. And then all of a sudden he does this like shuddering, shaking type thing, and this white fluid comes out the rear end, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on there. So that's what's happening every 5 minutes. And the sad thing is, guys, that is actually resulted in the persecution of rhinos, because as some of you may know, rhinos are killed for their horns because their horns are believed to be an aphrodisiac. First of all, they're not even horns. They're just like fingernail material that grows on the top of the skull. It is not an aphrodisiac, but a lot of these folks look at that and say, if I have that horn, maybe I can get on top of my wife and I can have an ejaculation every 2 to 5 minutes for an hour. It's not going to happen, but that's unfortunately the demise of the rhino.
What an amazing
Is that a challenge?
amount of terrain you just covered there.
A
with-
whole hour?
with strong information that we did not have. Number 2, greatest sexual experience.
Do humans go home with the horn?
Exactly. Yeah.
Other animals want the horn? I'm
Horny
confused.
humans, that humans treat it as an aphrodisiac. What are you not understanding? That the horn.
I'm struggling.
the-
If I walk into my bedroom with a big horn, like my
No,
wife's gonna be like,
you're
hell
taking
yeah.
it as a pill, Chris. You're not putting it on your forehead.
I like my way better.
Listening to anything that I'm saying, it does not work. These animals are persecuted for myths, for misconceptions. Okay. Number 2, I guess if you're going to go with frequency, guys, it's going to be the Shaw's Jird, spelled J-I-R-D.
But I
Look it up.
don't think he's looking for frequency, though. I think that he was asking you.
Who do you like watching?
Just impressive.
The voyeur in you. Who do you say, wow, that is a magnificent sexual experience that those two animals are having?
I mean, the elephant is pretty incredible because it does have, and all right, I know where you guys are going to go with this, but I'm just speaking from a scientific point of view, okay? It does have the largest penis of any land animal. Now, what happens is because the elephant's such a massive, bulky animal, it's all he has to mount the female. You see, he mounts the female and he only has about 30 seconds on top of the female. He knows this because the males are so much larger than the females. And after about 30 seconds, she'll collapse. So he doesn't do any pelvic thrusting. And what he does is he mounts the female. If you looked at the penis of the elephant, it's like the best way to describe it, you take a fire hose, put it on a fire hydrant, open the hydrant and let it go. And the hose is just like, fwah, 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 fwah. And that thing is just searching around, you see? And it searches around like a little periscope. And when it finds the female, it gets inside the female. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, and he reaches what he's looking for, okay? But it's incredible to watch this penis like it has a mind of its own. The elephant's totally still. He's totally tense. You can look at his face. He's like going, 30, 29, 28, 27, because he's counting down. He knows he's got 30 seconds before she collapses. He's got to find that promised land before she collapses. And when he does, I mean, I've taken photographs where you will see a smile on the. I'm not joking, guys. I'm not making this up.
Of course.
He is smiling
I mean,
when he finds what he's looking
it's
for.
a lot of
And then
pressure,
the
though,
amount-
Ron.
But the amount of ejaculate is overwhelming. It's like a bucket. It's like unbelievable.
Hell yeah.
This is an amazing segment that has one more amazing sexual experience in it. I want Ron McGill at a Moss event to unretire Sex and the Animals because he does this scientifically for 50 minutes and people are riveted.
That'd be tricky,
Well,
though,
you know
knowing
what?
you only have.
I will do. You know what, Dan? I have retired that thing for several years, but I will bring it out for a Moss event.
All right. Well, that's an exciting development.
We did it
there.
on a mystery crate once, and it was
I mean,
widely listened to.
It's exceptional. The number one, I don't know if you're ranking these in order, but the number one sexual experience in the animal kingdom, according to Ron McGill.
Okay. And this is going to sound kind of boring initially, but when you got to think about it, pigs. Pigs, I always wondered where the term screwing comes from, because I've always kind of looked at myself more like a nailer. Okay, kind of boom, 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 nailing. Okay, like you hit a nail. I said, because I don't really do the screwing type thing. But when you look at the penis of pigs, it is exactly like a corkscrew. It comes out, it looks like a corkscrew, and he'll get on top of the female, and he is, please don't take this offensively. I'm just trying to tell you where this term comes from.
Science. This is the science of
This is the science.
Animal
It is a
sex.
corkscrew, and he literally is screwing that female. It goes,
Ron.
woo, 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 and it
It
screws into the
can't sound
female.
like that.
Well, it doesn't. No, it doesn't make it
doesn't
sound like that.
that.
What
That'd
if
be
I say-
great
what
if it
does
did sound like. What does it
In
sound like?
his imagination, when it's going well, the pig thinks it sounds like that, but it does not sound like
But then
that.
what's amazing is, I talked about the volume from the elephant, but in relative to its size, the pig produces the largest amount of ejaculate per ejaculation. An average boar will produce a pint of ejaculate and an ejaculation.
That is
So, I
the
mean-
podcast description on a pint of ejaculate is the podcast description.
Guys, I'm just trying to give you some information,
It
some
is.
education. I know
We
sometimes
appreciate it.
people- we're tiptoeing on a fine line here, but I'm trying not to. I'm not using any profanity. I'm saying exactly what it is. Nature's fascinating. Listen, if you come to the zoo on any given day and everybody's in front of one exhibit and they're looking at the animals doing something I'll tell you what they're doing. They're screwing. Okay, because people are fascinated by that. Because you know what, sex is a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. We don't want to get caught up in some adult bookstore because we'll get stereotyped and labeled, right? But if you can see something really interesting at a family institution like a zoo, you're going to watch because nobody's going to label you there.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Men, do you think of yourself as a nailer?
Now this might be a dumb question. The pig, does the penis
It's
screw
an
on
odd
itself,
detail.
or does the pig have to spin?
No, it kind of screws by itself because as he pushes it, it just kind of woo, 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 gets in
Again
there.
with the
You
noise.
mentioned
All right,
that,
all
and
right,
it's
we
not
got
what
it.
it does, but he's asking. Yes, Chris has it.
Perfect.
Chris Cody has the pig doing like somersaults to contort itself so
No,
that
no,
an
no, it doesn't do
otherwise
that.
straight penis then screws.
It doesn't do that. Listen, I got photographs of this. I photographed the whole process,
Text
so
them
we'll
to
show
me.
it at a future Moss event.
Okay, excellent. This is great. Animal porn at the next Moss event. We all have that to look forward to. How about the answer to his other question?
Who's the worst?
The three worst in the animal kingdom, or the three most pathetic Lotharios.
Well, again, I'm going to go with that Shaw's Jerd, the JIRD, because though it has the record for frequency, it'll breed a female like once every 15 seconds for an hour. Okay. But in that 15 seconds, about 12 seconds is recovery time. It's one of those things where if you blink, you've missed it. Okay. Now, some of you guys may be saying, welcome to my hell, but this is something that is common in the Shaw's Jerd. It's just so fast. It's like, what the hell was that? You can see the female's face. She does the same thing. She turns around. What the hell was that?
The second most pathetic Lothario?
Geez, I don't know if anything's really pathetic. I think that
Humans.
Bad,
Well, yeah.
unpleasant humans?
Yeah, humans can be pretty pathetic. I mean, let's be honest, that can be pretty pathetic.
Aren't there painful sexual experiences in the animal
Go
Oh
kingdom?
yes,
on.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All cats. Cats are the biggest, probably the greatest, poster child for painful sex because cat penises have thorns on them. They have spines like spikes on them. So when it's fully erect, those spikes point backwards like a cactus, you see? So when he inserts it in the female, it slides in perfectly. However, if he tries to withdraw it while it's still erect, those fleshy spines, they rake the sides of the vaginal walls of the cat. Have you ever heard domestic cats breeding? It sounds like this. It starts with like, oh, oh, oh. And then all of a sudden you hear, "Meow." That's when he withdraws and he rakes the vaginal walls and she's kind of going, ouch, that hurts. But this is what's really important to understand. That raking of the vaginal walls is what starts ovulation in the female. So as he's doing that, he'll screw up like 3 or 4 times. She'll turn around and beat the heck out of him as he withdraws and he scratches her vaginal walls. But then he realizes, okay, I can't move because she keeps beating me up every time I do this, because they'll breed every 20 minutes, sometimes for 2 or 3 days. Then he stays there put. And what that does, you see, that's nature saying, okay, now you've got her ovulating because you scratched those vaginal walls several times. Now you got to stay still. So as much semen reaches her ovaries as possible so that she becomes, in fact, inseminated.
Mike,
It's really neat the way nature works.
what are we going to do, Mike? A lot of parents like to listen to this segment
Oh, no.
with
See, now
their kids.
you guys
No.
have asked me these
I
questions.
know, no, hold on, just hold on. We need to put a warning on this hour. Ron McGill works so blue. Children, be careful. Like we need to. A lot
I don't
of
think
kids.
this is blue though. I think this
Well,
is
but
scientific.
It is scientific.
He said he was a nailer.
But a lot of people listen to the
It
show
is adult information, guys.
internationally.
When I do my talk, it's only adults only. I wouldn't do this with kids in the audience. I don't even do it with my own kids, and they're adults.
I don't want to ruin the experience of a parent who really loves doing this with their child right now being made deeply uncomfortable in a way that will make Ron McGill polarizing in ways we don't need him to be polarizing.
Please, thank you.
When we label the episode "A Pint of Ejaculate," I feel like it'll be giving away
That'll
within
send
the
a
segment.
message.
Good
Yeah.
job.
Hey people, tell us what in the sport made you laugh hardest this weekend. It is a segment we call What Made You Laugh This Weekend. Ha ha ha!
Gonna go around the room here. A lot of stuff to choose from. I just saw a report. Daniel Radcliffe is going to play Weird Al Yankovic in Roku's first original biopic movie. You're interested in that, Mike, right? I mean, Weird Al Yankovic formed. What are you looking at, Stugotz? What's the matter?
We were looking for a read. That's all. Nothing to do with the show.
Do you have the CBDMD read?
No.
All right. Let's get him that.
I think it's just funniest thing was brought to you by CB.
Yeah, it's a tongue twister. CBDMD, right?
Yeah, write it down.
Is
Yeah,
there-
right. That, yeah.
Is there
Presented
a
by CBDMD.
okay? That's it. Okay.
Hey people, tell us what in the sport made you laugh hardest this weekend. It is a segment we call What Made You Laugh This Weekend. Ha ha ha!
Dan, funniest thing from the sports weekend. Excuse me about that. It's $5 fine. Is brought to you by our friends.
Excuse me about that.
Yeah, you know. Tuesday, long weekend.
who's-
CBDMD
you had-
is the
you had-
sponsor of
you-
funniest thing
You
from the
had
sports
4
weekend.
days off.
Yeah. And
Is that a fine, Chris Cody?
I mean, he didn't clear his throat. He just talked through some phlegm.
I find myself. I
He
mean,
did. That's why I was wondering. I don't
Yeah.
think you're fine.
But it's while he was reading a sponsor read, though.
Yeah.
That should be a fine.
And it's a health sponsor read. Like in terms of spokesman, he's the worst for your product because he can't speak. And when he does speak, it looks and sounds unhealthy.
CBDMD is the sponsor of funniest thing from the sports weekend. Dano, $2.
I'm just saying, I think that is a product that is sponsoring us because they want you to know the health properties of CBD. A lot of people are learning the health properties of CBD. You might want to not sound as unhealthy as anyone can in audio when they can't see you. Already, it's bad that the spokesman doesn't look like he is
Right.
someone who's proud of.
That's not fair.
Stugotz always wins, though, because
Yeah.
we would have been moved on from that, but now we're still sitting here talking about it. Look at
Mhm.
us. Always wins.
The sponsor wins because this segment is brought to you by, again,
CBDMD, Dan. Funniest thing from the sports weekend.
Chris. What was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
Chris Cody presented by Sheets and Giggles.
That's right.
Jesus, are we really doing this? We're gonna do this.
Yep.
We're gonna do this with everything. Like this is irresponsible. What we're doing here, where Chris Cody's words can be purchased by whom?
Worchest.
Sheets and Giggles.
Sheets and Giggles. Do they have a promo code, Chris? Promo code Dan?
Yeah, Dan, Shiggles. I think they all work.
Yeah.
But not during this
No,
segment.
because this one's presented by CBDMD.
Right. You're taking away from that sponsor.
great
It's
products.
CBDMD, Dan. Funniest thing from the sports weekend.
Don't do that anymore. Go ahead, Chris Cody, presented by Sheets and Giggles.
Mac Jones sitting on the sideline
Oh,
during the
great.
blowout, getting coached up by Josh McDaniels, and all he could look at was his breath. The video is like
was great.
McDaniels is coaching him up, and he's just
It is fun when you can see your own breath.
It's great.
right?
Well, when
Yeah,
you can see
yeah.
that much of it,
Right.
because it
Yeah.
seemed like a fire hose of breath. It wasn't just that it was his breath; it was a lot of breath. It was it was really cold there. There were a couple of funny things that happened. First of all, Josh Allen told Diana Rossini before the game that he didn't need layers, and then he apologized to her after the game because he lied to her. Because he went out there with layers.
He's like, it was cold.
He ran out there. Rossini was asking him a question. She was slurring it because of how cold it was. And Josh Allen apologizes for laughing. What happened to Mac Jones is the best, and the new Tom Brady, and Bill Belichick doesn't need Tom Brady. And that's as embarrassing as Buffalo played a perfect offensive game. Never punted, didn't turn the ball over. That's as embarrassed as you've ever seen Belichick, right? He prides himself on defense, couldn't do anything.
I mean, I'm guessing if we could have seen Belichick when Brady was hoisting the Lombardi Trophy last year, that would have been the most embarrassed we've seen Bill Belichick. But yesterday, or over the weekend, certainly was.
Just a game. I don't remember Belichick looking like that. He takes away your best thing, and it's like, oh wow, he can't take away anything. They're going to get first downs all game.
Funny, I don't think Tom Brady passed 17 points in like his first 3 playoff wins. And Mac Jones does it against one of the top-rated defenses in the league, and he's a disaster.
An embarrassing disaster for
Loses
Belichick.
by 30.
I mean, that's where the standard is, though. They put the standard in a pretty impossible place.
I have to look it up, but I don't think Tom Brady posted 17 points in his first 3 playoff wins.
His first
I'm checking it right
championship, he threw 1 touchdown pass. 1 the entire playoffs. 1. So it would stand to reason what you're saying is true. Tony, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
Dan, staying in Buffalo, there was a monster hog thrown on the field after Kendrick Bourne caught a touchdown that didn't matter. A huge dildo was thrown to the field.
A bildo, they call them.
That's right.
And it's always great. Did the announcers know what it was and mention it and play it all, or did they just run away from it and not know because it looked like a penalty flag instead of something that was a fleshy sex toy?
Well, no, this happens all the time in Buffalo. They throw dildos on the field all the time. So I think it was just the first time Kendrick Bourne had seen it, but I think the Buffalo fans are well aware and threw dildos on the field.
Mike, Brady's first playoff game, 312 yards, tuck rule game against the Raiders. The next 2, though, dreadful. I mean, 115 and 145 yards.
Yeah, but how many points up? Like, point was a point, and I know he had the Steelers game, but I had to correct Chris Cody when he pointed to the Steelers game. I'm like, that's a Bledsoe game.
They scored 16 against the Raiders, 24 in the next game, and then 20 in the Super Bowl against St. Louis.
What Tony is saying, though, about Bourne reminds me of the first time my mother went with my father and asked him to be discreet where there was somebody at the beach who was topless. And what Bourne did with the sex toy is what my father did with a topless woman, where he was supposed to be subtle, and he just immediately thrust out his arm and pointed at the top of a woman because he couldn't believe she didn't have on a bikini top. Billy, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
Sad Cowboy fans.
So good.
Yeah, I love Sad Cowboy, especially if you're watching on Nickelodeon. It's great.
How much does Stephen A. Smith enjoy all of that?
He almost died. Did you see that?
Well, I saw the coronavirus hospitalized him on New Year's Day, and then he said the virus saved his life. And
No.
you would have seen.
Yeah, the vaccine.
I'm sorry,
vaccine,
excuse me.
yes.
The vaccine saved his
The
life.
virus almost killed him.
Yes,
The
thank
weird
you.
Stockholm syndrome that he got.
The Monday after a Cowboy loss, Stephen A. Smith doesn't have to do anything but laugh.
He was already starting it at his house. By the way, Stephen A., a little long with the Christmas tree, I think.
I thought the same thing.
Really?
He still has his stockings
He's
hung.
been dealing with
Hospitalized.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Wait,
All
so
right.
you guys, wait
He
a
gets a
minute.
pass.
You guys have Stephen A. packing up all that stuff on his own? You don't think he has
No.
someone that does that?
I just know that he was sick, and what I noticed about that video is him flexing chimney, big ceiling. Those houses aren't easy to come by in New York.
Do you think Stephen A. has like a shed with tools? No. Or like he puts like the Christmas boxes up in the attic? Where do you think he does all that stuff?
Lifelong single man would have to, I would imagine, lifelong single man with money, what I would imagine would have people do that for him. That's what you guys noticed, though? Just the
And
Christmas tree?
I have blinds very similar to his. That was very reassuring for me. I said, wow, that's nice.
Do we know how First Take did this year because First Take during football, the ratings initially went down, and he's trying to do a show that is a little blacker than the average ESPN show, and him burying Michael Irvin on a Cowboys Monday was funny. You can't, you got to laugh at what was happening. Michael Irvin had to go out there and just eat it after the Cowboys lost that way. Do we know how the ratings are doing for First Take? Because I would be curious. Roy, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
Darren Rovell, and I am willing to carry this thing over into it being the funniest thing of Black History Month next month.
I have over 9 MLK signed items. I am a humongous fan of what he's done. And over the last 7 years, I've collected a lot of things. It's not only MLK, it's a lot of Black history. I own a Rosa Parks signed NAACP card. So it was pretty shocking today how I was called racist when I am a student and lover of Black history. And it was I never expected the reaction that I got today. I'm sorry if people think that a white man can't enjoy Black history. All right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I really am. I'm sorry if people think that a white man can't love Martin Luther King. But to me, that seems pretty counterintuitive.
I wish, Mike, that he at one point had simply said as his bona fide, I have an actual race card. Like before giving us the details, I wish he had said, no, you know what? You can't call me a racist because of what I own. I own the original race card.
Twitter Spaces are having a moment right now. I love checking out Twitter Spaces, particularly in college football. But after a team loses a big game and it's all doom and gloom, it's all like the sports radio that you grew up loving with no commercial breaks. It's you want something passionate to say, come on in here. It is vintage sports radio.
With opposing fan bases joining in to like troll them. It's really great.
I love it.
What was the funniest thing this weekend for you? We ran out of the music there. We need.
Oh, it was Aaron Ravel. It was Aaron Ravel. I'm not topping that.
I don't think anyone can.
I usually don't like to piggyback on another funniest thing, but I'm not topping that.
And by the way, First Takes ratings have gone up since the reformatting. There's a headline from November. The audience continues growth since reformatting.
10% year to year is what it says, right?
I am rooting for Stephen A. Smith. I believe, I know a lot of you.
Lovable underdog, no?
A lot of you find him polarizing, but the reinvention of Stephen A. Smith as someone who came back to ESPN and won, I hope that he continues to use the power the way that he's using it. Because that platform, Stugotz, it's a tough thing, right? He ran off Max Kellerman. He admitted that he ran off Max Kellerman. You are seeing the way the industry is rewarding brands now. Skip Bayless has just entered the podcast market. He just got here. 70-year-old Skip Bayless has
unfiltered.
and I happen to enjoy Stephen A. Smith's way of doing it a lot more than I enjoy Skip Bayless's way of doing it. But those two have parlayed legitimate power in a sphere right now where all of these guys, Stugotz, the sports talker. Mike is longing for Twitter Spaces and sports radio. You got to admire the grift. Skip Bayless, 70 years old. I'm telling you, I was marveling at 50 straight minutes of Cowboys talk, where it was just, again, the sound was down, but it's just Shannon Sharpe laughing, smiling, and burying him, and Skip Bayless taking it as the wrestling heel, who I don't think actually cares about this stuff. Mike disputes that. Mike thinks
Oh, no, I think he cares deeply about this stuff.
What you said is not
undisputed.
Yeah.
What was the funniest thing from the sports weekend, Stugotz?
Tony Bradley of the Bulls got in a fight with Ja Morant, and Steven Adams ended it by picking up Tony Bradley.
That guy is the closest thing we have to a pirate in American sports. An actual pirate. Like if I told you that guy was time traveled in as a pirate, because he was a bouncer in a bar. He took a giant man and just walked him off the court. Jimmy Butler, you've heard Jimmy Butler quoted, right? It's the way Dwight Howard talks about Pekovic. Like he's the world's strongest man. That Steven Adams is universally regarded in that sport as stronger than everyone else.
Tony Bradley is 6'10", 250.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't seem like he'd actually harm you. He's just like a pirate, like He seems like, put it on the poll, Guillermo. Does Steven Adams look like a pirate who runs a .org?
Here's a direct quote from Jimmy Butler on Steven Adams. That motherfucker is so strong.
It's one of the great stories that, one of the best stories Stan tells of yelling at Dwight Howard as he came back to a huddle for allowing a rebound to Pekovic. And Dwight Howard just sort of muttering, "You don't understand, Stan. That's the world's strongest man." And Stan was just like, "You know what? Okay. Yeah, you probably are more qualified here than I. You're probably more qualified here than I am." Stugotz, what was the funniest thing from the sports
I
weekend?
just gave it to you.
My fault. I forgot.
That's a fine.
Is it a fine?
I don't know.
I've got a handful of things here that I believe to be worthy of funniest thing.
Okay.
I didn't believe that was Ryan Fitzpatrick shirtless at the Bills game. I thought that was a body double. He seems like a fun dad, yes?
Bad.
Yeah.
Gets injured at a water flume park, according to a caller to a Washington radio station before the season.
Right.
And why would you be shirtless at the Bills game?
Why not?
Stugotz?
I mean, Bills Mafia.
Did you expect to
But
be?
he's the quarterback of another team.
Whatever.
He had some good
The
years
season's
there.
over, right?
Does he? Yeah, is he gonna go support all of his teams?
If you saw Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, shirtless at the Cincinnati playoff game, would you be upset with him? I mean, he's playing for the Bears. Why not? Have your moments.
Well, it's not in his personality, though. If I were to tell you of all the quarterbacks in the league, who's most likely to end up shirtless at a cold game? The Harvard grad is who you guys are going with.
Yeah, that was on brand. Has he played for the majority of the teams still alive in the playoffs?
Does he live in Buffalo, or he just decided it'll be fun to go to that?
Well, did he have
environment?
good seats? Because it didn't look like he had good seats. And again, Josh Allen was playing in the game and lied to Diana Rossini, who was speaking through frozen breath and a slur, asking her questions because it was so cold out there. That just seems terrible.
He has. He played for the majority of the teams still alive in the playoffs. Counted 5.
He looks to be in like the second level. Yeah. Maybe some sort of suite level.
I forgot he played for the Rams.
Yeah, Titans, Bengals, Bills, Rams, Bucks.
Here's what's funny about that, or one of the funniest things about that, because you've heard me make fun of Tom Brady's reign over him on all the teams in the AFC East. But Fitzpatrick is at a game. The guy that Washington brought in as an old guy, and the Dolphins had last year, to compete in that sport against Tom Brady, is in the stands at a game shirtless and frozen as Tom Brady plays on. And the Wall Street Journal runs an article this last weekend about Tom Brady's 13 career tackles. We talked to the men who were on the wrong end of it.
The many tackles.
One of the quotes was just, "I must have tripped." They talked to the 13 guys who have been on the receiving end of a Tom Brady tackle. Stugotz's weekend observations are coming in just a second. But Mike, again, I don't remember why it is. It involved Isner for some reason. You were talking about the 5 weirdest, not weirdest, I shouldn't make it that pejorative. The most different bodies you've been around.
Mike and I were having a little tennis discussion. I'm not certain what we were talking about. Something about majors.
We were talking
and-
because Djokovic
Right.
may not be eligible for the
Correct.
French Open, which
Yes.
actually has huge historical implications because right now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal are all tied for first place on the major wins category.
Mhm.
And if Djokovic doesn't play in the French Open, he would be Nadal's main competition. Nadal can take the lead. So there are huge ramifications for what Djokovic is going through.
Australia now is, according to Serbians, Australia no longer exists because of what they just
It's
did.
an international incident.
I loved the headlines in tennis that called it "Return of Serb." That was Serbia. Serbia is having nothing to do with Australia now because he is an epic national symbol.
Well, the French Open is about to do the same thing. It's going to be interesting to see what Djokovic does because I know that record means something to him. Of course it does. But it means a lot to him because he doesn't feel validated as the greatest tennis player of all time. But he knows if he has the most majors, no one could really argue it.
And he could put that major record out of reach, certainly for Federer. Nadal, he's had his injuries, is recovering from one now. Djokovic is still operating at the top of his game.
What a great era of tennis.
Incredible.
Good God,
You
these
literally
three guys
have the three greatest male
Ever.
tennis players ever
all at the same
competing
time.
Pretty much
It's
at the same
three
time.
Jordans. It's
Yeah.
three Michael Jordans.
Yeah, Federer's peak happened when it was when Djokovic and Nadal were a little young, but they came up and took it from him. But Stugotz was making the point, like, Nadal's going to take the French Open. Who's there to compete with him? And like, no, Medvedev is coming for stuff, and Tsitsipas is coming for stuff. And we got to Riley Opelka, who Stugotz actually returned to serve from, and we were kind of surprised that if Stugotz could return his serve, he can't be ranked very high, but he is. He's like the third highest ranked American player.
He's one of these 7-footers who serves 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I don't think he made your list of top 5 most unusual bodies you've been around.
People have no idea how large tennis players are because there's no frame of reference because no one else is sharing the screen. And it got me, Riley Opelka got me thinking of some other tennis bodies that I've been around, and I've always been just floored by how large these individuals are. So I put together a top 5 list of just shocking bodies to me. And there's some nuance here because it's not just big or air quotes freakish looking bodies. It's like, how with this frame
Well,
do you do?
Shaq has to be on this list.
How do you do the things you do based on how you play? I know how Shaq does it. Shaq is big and strong. He looked every bit of it. It didn't surprise me that he was able to compete.
So he's not on this list.
No, he's not.
Shaq does not make the list.
No, he's not. So number 5, Brett Romberg.
Shouldn't be that strong.
Roms.
Shouldn't be that strong. Shouldn't have been able to excel at the center position because he's got Tyrannosaurus Rex arms. It
You're right.
makes no sense.
No, you're right.
I feel like you need a long wingspan to play center in the NFL and at college.
Whittingham vigorously nodding. He does have Romberg. It's as if he doesn't have arms. It's just hands as armpits.
It's wild.
I think that's harsh. I think it's just relative to NFL offensive linemen.
Right.
He has small arms. I think if you saw
Hands
it,
as
but he
armpits
has arms.
is too strong. You're
Yes.
alleging. You're
He's got
saying
like
this.
he looks like a Mr. Potato Head sometimes.
again,
Careful.
No,
That's just-
when-
for a
You're gonna end
football
up in a
player.
Man in a bar.
when he blocked, it seemed like his nipples were hands.
We should probably step away from having more beef with that offensive line
careful.
for 2000.
Let's get to number 4.
Billy all of a sudden wants to exercise caution with former University of Miami
Well,
offensive lineman.
I talked to Romberg at a Target. He was very nice.
Oh, nice.
Number 4.
No, so there is the journalistic spine of one Billy Gill.
I love it.
His standard
Bird Road,
is
yeah.
I talked to Romberg
Nice
one
guy.
time at a Walmart. He was
Target,
nice.
a Target, Dan. Come on.
Number 4, Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
He's not much taller than I am, but he's one
It's
of the greatest
crazy.
rebounders
It's
in the history of
crazy.
the game.
His ass is where your ears
Yeah.
are, is what it is.
His ass is so high. I
Yes.
cannot
It doesn't make sense. though.
properly
He-
frame
You
this.
were surprised that he was not much bigger than you, correct?
Right. I was stunned that I assumed that one of the greatest rebounders and an excellent basketball player would be much larger than me. And
He is
maybe
not.
had like 2 inches on me max.
The round mound of rebound.
All right. Number 3, John Isner.
One of we have around here every once in a while some muscular therapists that come in. Whittingham just got the tension taken out of his neck.
Oh.
And you know how strong Genesis is, but whenever any of these people have worked on Barkley, they cannot believe the length of his levers. Like they can't. When they're done with him, all of them are exhausted. Like they're trying to treat him for what ails him. I don't understand how those hips work, how how that ass works. Those glutes are where the back of your head is. Everyone listening to this.
John Isner. I don't even know if he's taller than Riley Opelka, but he seemed it. His arms just went for days. I was afraid when he got up out of a chair because he's just all femur. I don't know how
Like
these tennis
pogo
players do it.
sticks, pogo sticks for legs.
It's incredible the weight that these guys excel at when you take into account their frame. They
Like
are titans.
giraffe kind
Yes.
of.
Yeah, they are titans, and people don't speak enough
But
about
it's
it.
also because what the advantage Isner has isn't just the 7 feet. It's not just that he's got a whip that he's basically at the top of his serve. it's also because he's so high up that he's hitting the ball down. So it's bouncing, and it would bounce over Stugatz's head if he wanted it to, because he's so tall.
I'm not so certain. I mean, Opelka is the same size, same kind of serve. I returned his, so I don't know what you're talking about. You don't give me enough credit as one of the great tennis service returners of all time. You really don't. I mean, top 5, right behind Agassi.
It's amazing that Federer was at 6'1", not tall certainly by any stretch of the imagination in that sport, and just housing these dudes.
Yeah.
And eating their serves didn't matter. So it was a testament to him. Number 2 is Maurice Jones-Drew.
MJD.
So small.
He was just a bowling ball. Like, you stand next to him and you're like, how could anyone tackle this? They have a saying in football, if you've ever played it, low man wins. No, he's round. He's the lowest. You can't get lower than him. He would blow people up with just this crazy explosion. And I'm not even sure his hamstrings ever totally unwound. I don't understand.
It would be like trying to tackle an actual bowling ball. Like, where do you tackle it? You just have to go in, and it's going to hurt.
Yeah, he was really good. And number 1, Taco Fall. I saw him in Cleveland.
It's unbelievable.
And I saw the top of him because something was obstructing my view.
It's unbelievable.
And I assumed surely he's standing on some sort of platform. And I got to the same floor, and I was looking up, and I was like, I kept expecting the body to end, and it would just keep going.
7'7"?
Yeah, he stepped outside. It was a cold, balmy day in Cleveland, and he put on a hoodie as to not be recognized. Taco Fall.
6.5.
It's a great list, man.
It was like, you remember that scene in Ninja Turtles where Raphael goes to the movie theaters in a trench coat and doesn't get recognized? It's kind of like how that was.
It is.
But your Taco Fall, everyone knows it.
It is funny. I do imagine. How was your vision sort of impaired? Because Jamal Mashburn one time, I think I've told you guys this story, was laying on his side on the court, and for some reason, looking through all the legs, he saw Alonzo Mourning's legs and asked himself, why is there a horse on the court? Just like he was looking at it on the side. And some of these bodies, Taco Fall, I'm imagining like in a casino, you're coming up to where the escalator goes up. What I'm imagining is you're looking into the distance and all the other human beings are under what would be the roof there. And he is still going up.
I couldn't make sense of it with like all the frames of reference. He was just so much larger. And obviously, I know Taco Fall is impossibly tall. I am here to tell you, it is somehow, I had imagined seeing Taco Fall being like, that would clearly be the tallest human being I had ever seen. But it's beyond description. It's somehow bigger than I imagined.
It's like when you say when people meet Shaq and they just go, he's big, huh? Like, it's so impressive. I remember the first time I saw Zydrunas Ilgauskas in person. I was sat at like row 4. I was sat at like row 4 of a Heat game. I was like 11 years old. I was like, oh my
I know.
Lord.
It's funny because I was in. You don't realize that they're larger than anything else in the animal kingdom. I was walking through a Bahamas casino with Boog Shambi, and he's like, "That's Travis Knight over there." It was somebody who's sitting down, and I'm like, "No, it's not Travis Knight. That doesn't look anything like him." And then he started to unfold when he got out of the chair, and Travis Knight isn't even one of the big ones, but it's just like, oh my God, that moves differently than all the other animals.
You know who might have been number one if I was there in person to experience it, but I was only experiencing it via monitor, and Derrick Henry seems like he should be on this list.
Yes.
I don't know how. I don't know. The photos from that day and you sharing a desk with him. So one of my favorite moments in show history.
How much bigger he looked than
And he's a running back, a historically position that
Stugotz and Billy were
historically
next
smaller
to him.
people
Weren't
play.
you guys next to him? Weren't Stugotz and Billy right next to Derrick Henry? Do they fit the body type?
Not that big.
Yeah.
Time now for Stugotz's weekend observations.
It is time for Stugotz to share his game notes. No one in the media will tell you what happened better than my boy Stu.
Weekend observations brought to you by Miller Lights. Great taste, 96
Why
calories.
are you whispering in my ear, laughing and red-faced? Derrick Henry was enormous. Why are you doing that?
He was so big.
Yeah,
right?
big guy, yeah. Should play football.
How big was he? You were
He's big, Dad.
Yeah, big, yeah.
mean, you want exacts? What do you want? I mean,
I just wanted something other than he wasn't that big.
I've seen bigger.
Hell yeah.
Again, weekend observations brought to you by Miller Lite. Great taste, 96 calories, available for delivery. Dan, he was just 7 minutes away from winning a Super Bowl and becoming the best-looking quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. But Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs were just too good. He's been injured and inconsistent ever since, but after going 16 of 25 for 186 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception, doing just enough to not lose the game, Dan, make no mistake about it, Jimmy Garoppolo is back. Jimmy G, which leads me to my top 5 best-looking quarterbacks to ever win a Super Bowl.
Wow.
How about that?
All right. Exciting.
Yes, very exciting. Number 5, Tom Brady, 2001. Number 4, Len Dawson. I mean, kids, look him up. Lenny in his prime is a handsome devil.
Len Dawson.
Oh, Len Dawson is a good-looking man. Look him up.
Okay.
The iconic photo of him smoking a cigarette with like a Miller Lite at his feet.
Mm-hmm. That's Len Dawson. Yeah. Good-looking guy, right?
Number 3.
Troy Aikman.
Fitter than ever. Shirtless. Sculpted now.
Yep.
6-pack.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Jay-Z.
I think that's as close as we're going to come to black on this list.
Number 2, Doug Williams.
You just threw that in there
What
now.
do you mean?
You just
What
said
do you
you're full of
mean?
it. You did that on you. There's no way that's there.
Read them and wait, Dano. Here you go. Top 5.
Your lists on handsome people are, you know what? I stand corrected.
Thank you.
My bad.
Oh!
I stand
Did he
corrected.
spell Doug correctly?
That's a good question. D-U-G?
You got it.
Thank you. Doug Williams, when he won that Super Bowl for the Washington then Redskins, now the football team.
Dude,
What
wait,
happened?
what are you doing?
What happened there?
You asked
That
me
was,
trying to
that
tell
was-
this guy
that was
whatever.
not the way to do that.
I said now football team.
All right.
I was just trying to point out he was a handsome guy.
That's right.
I
The
mean,
slur. You could have avoided that.
Number
Yeah.
1.
Tom Brady, 2021.
Oh, wow. Okay. The most handsome there's ever been
Yeah,
at the position.
he's not.
Yes. You have that right.
Thank you.
He deserves to be on the list twice.
Mm-hmm. Brian Flores, Houston Texans, collision course. Sean McDermott, revenge game. I saw a sign for the flu shot off to the side of an urgent care, ruined by the wind. And I said to myself out loud, poor flu shot. Have you thought that at all lately?
Never.
You haven't.
All the pub is being taken from it.
Really? I mean, it's kind of on the side of the building. No one's paying attention
Taking
to
a
it. No one
battering,
cares if it
left
flies
behind,
away.
No longer in
Yeah.
its prime, the
No
flu.
one cares. Yeah. I get one every day. I mean, if they told me to get 2 a day, I would.
Flu shots every day.
Mm-hmm. Buffalo Bills. Clicking on all
I'm
cylinders.
pretty sure that would be bad for you, right? We don't have to.
Last time I got the flu shot, I got the flu. I mean,
I'm following this guy. It's on Instagram. It's the Raw Meat Project, and every day he has a raw meat meal. It looks like he's gonna. I think he might die from this, but so far so good. I have to think a flu shot every day is bad for you.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo at Levitard Show. Is a flu shot every day bad for you?
Buffalo Bills clicking on all cylinders, peaking at the right time, circling the wagons.
Really?
Oh, yes.
All of those things.
They always are. Dan, I have a new Belichick Brady credit pie chart.
All right.
You ready?
Yes, very exciting.
99.5% Tom Brady.
Oh, all right.
0.5% Bill Belichick.
What was it before
and
that
I'm being
last
generous
game?
with 0.5.
What was it before that last game, though? Because you were celebrating. I think you said maybe his best coaching job, Dan. So what was it before that last result?
It was 97.6% before this past weekend's
Oof.
results.
Took a beating.
Yeah. I mean, all of a sudden, Bruce Arians is Bill Belichick. BA. I have no idea if Mac Jones is any good. Cincinnati looks like a misery. The jungle, the Queen City. Looks miserable there, right?
It does look cold.
Yeah.
A little cold and dark. First playoff victory in 31 years, Dugat.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Burrow.
Yep. Zach Taylor said
Hey. That's all Dan had.
That's all I got there.
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow making that city matter again at the quarterback position like it hasn't since Boomer Esiason. 31 years.
Booms. Remember Kenny Anderson?
I don't want to do this show with you. You
about
already
Jeff
did.
Blake?
One of the greats.
You already did Len
about
Dawson. Come
Neil
on.
O'Donnell.
Come on.
Oh, Neil O'Donnell.
Achilles Smith.
Oh my God.
John Kitna.
Kitty Cat.
Kitty Cat. I don't feel like anyone
his nickname,
called him that. I don't
Friends did.
think his lovers did.
Zach Taylor said the playoff win is a credit to the Bengals' faith in me. No, Zach. It's a credit to the greatness of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and has absolutely nothing to do with you. Dan, you know what the C in Chase stands for?
No.
Canton. No Brown, no Fournette, no Godwin, no Jones, no problem. I hate him. It's enough already. He's got the Rams strolling into town this weekend. That's going to be fun. Aaron Donald going after Brady. He's not going to get to him, though. Ever.
You're having a whole conversation.
I am,
You're,
myself.
you're
Yeah,
playing the
weird.
game out yourself.
Not that I should go up against your gambling record this postseason because you've been pretty good.
I have.
But Tampa is down 2 offensive linemen.
Oh, Wirtz is out? Is he going to be out?
Wirfs.
Oh, whatever.
$5.
Really?
Oh, I just like turning the tables on you on a fine that's not a fine for you.
You still owe 5 for yay.
I don't know 5 for Ye.
Yeah, you do.
No,
You owe
I
5
don't.
for Ye.
No,
I
I
mean,
don't.
it's-
Kanye
you called him
West.
Kanye twice.
I got his name
We told
right.
you it was Ye,
He
and then you
doesn't
said
de-
it again. I
he
mean,
doesn't get to decide what his name is
I'm
for
not
me.
putting my 5 until you put your 5 in.
No, that's I don't know how you just got away with. I don't deserve a fine for Kanye West.
It's yay. It's 5 more. 15. Where was I? Giving game balls to a local bar. All of a sudden, Zach Taylor's the toast of Cincinnati. The Natty. Have you noticed this with Zach Taylor all of a sudden? I mean, gee, he has nothing to do with it.
First playoff win in 31 years.
You pointed Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow.
Cincy. The Cowboys are a coach away. America's team. Can't wait to see the next potential Cowboys head coach that has to sleep over Jerry Jones's house to get the job. What a weird thing that
It's
was.
such a funny thing, all of it. Like this team for 25 years in America's sport, biggest sports, an oil tycoon runs it, gives press conferences, and it's terrible for 25 years and just handpicks puppet coaches. And then it's surprised when they do bad things at the end.
Pete Carroll coming back for another year used to be good news. Congratulations to Magic Johnson for finally learning how to use Twitter. I mean, how about that? You see that?
That was amazing to see him with no self-awareness.
Crazy.
Criticize the Lakers for not showing effort after he ran the Lakers and didn't show effort.
So proud of him.
It was amazing.
I'm with you on Len Dawson, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
one
you're
of
all
the
seeing it
coolest
now?
photos. It's one
Right.
of the coolest photos ever.
Looks good even in loose sleeves.
And
Which,
I
as
owe
we know,
you-
is generally the rule is if loose sleeves, you're bad.
And I owe you an apology again. He did not concoct Doug Williams on the fly. He made a racially sensitive list. Did it on his own.
And then they called the Washington football team by the
Yeah, well,
former
he
name.
did do that. That is what happened.
Jimmy Garoppolo did what Jimmy Garoppolo does. Handed the ball off. Jimmy G. I thought I was seeing the ghost of Jim Fossil until the announcers informed me it was his son, John Fossil. Did you see him?
I did not.
Oh my God, he looks just like Jim. The Cowboys are like the bad news bears of the NFL. Whenever, and wherever Jarris McKinnon plays, he plays well.
Who's Jarris McKinnon?
I don't know. The guy on the Chiefs.
Jarek McKinnon?
Oh, maybe.
That's a fine.
Really?
$5.
You still owe 15 for yay. Jarek, you agree though? Whatever he plays, wherever he plays well.
Your racially sensitive list is falling apart with the inability to pronounce the names of black men.
What? Pronounce yay. Stephen Jones said he is confident Mike McCarthy will return. That's unfortunate. Steve Nash said of the Kevin Durant injury, we can't cry about it. Steve, when you have James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, you can never cry again about anything. Bills, seriously. Bills.
So he's not allowed to get his heart broken? Okay.
No.
He's not allowed to grieve?
No. Not anywhere in his life can he cry again. Okay?
Fair
When
enough.
his wife comes home with terrible news, he can't cry.
Okay, fair
All right?
enough.
He has Durant, Kyrie, and Harden. It seems ridiculous.
I got you. Blessed for eternity.
Bills, Chiefs, feels like the AFC Championship game, even though the Titans beat them in back-to-back weeks in October. But you know what they say, Dan? That was then, and this is now. Hey, look at you. If I didn't know better, I'd say it looks like Dallas and San Francisco were both trying to lose that game. The Warriors are better without Klay Thompson.
You're so funny, man. As soon as you said that DeMar DeRozan was the MVP of the league, they lost 138-96 at home to the Warriors.
Zach LaVine's hurt. I mean,
as soon as you said it, they've
know.
lost every game by 40 points against anyone good they're playing. As you tried to convince America that DeMar DeRozan is a number one for a playoff team.
terrible. The Cavs lost Ricky Rubio and Colin Sexton, and yet every time I look at the standings, they've won 7 of 10. How'd that happen? The Cavs are good
They
again.
got some young players, yes.
Garland, right?
Yeah,
He's a real good player.
he is.
Mobley,
Jared Allen. is good.
Mobley.
Yeah. Kevin Love's still out there.
Off the bench, coming off the bench.
Have any of you guys seen the Cavs?
Yes.
How many times? Once,
Oh,
three
not very
times, 5
much.
times?
No, it's not like they're not on. I didn't realize that was a question. You were questioning our Cavs knowledge. We haven't been breaking it down on NBA TV, if that's what you
You
mean.
had Kevin Love off the bench, though. I was proud of you.
Yes, he's coming off the bench. We gave good analysis there.
He's having a good season.
He is having a good season. I said Sexton got hurt. I said Rubio got hurt. It's a good team. Kyler Murray, hell of a time to have the worst game of your career. Speaking of hell, Art Briles. Dan, those are the weekend observations.
Dateline Deerfield Beach. Cleveland Browns defensive tackle Malik McDowell. Have you seen what happened here, Mike? Because these details are strange.
It's not at all surprising. When you're about to read some
Mike,
details.
you're not
that
allowed to say that what I'm about to read is not at all surprising. You're not allowed to say that what I'm about to read is not at all. You're not allowed to be unsurprised by what I'm about to read.
Okay, go for it.
I need Stugotz to stop laughing because there is some delicate
But he's
subject.
allowed to be surprised.
There is some delicate subject matter around this. Well, you tell me. If someone is allowed to expect what I'm about to read is a normal behavior for a human being or football player or anything in the human realm.
Okay.
Have I made it broad enough?
Yes.
He was behind bars in Broward County on Tuesday after authorities said he walked into a Deerfield Beach Children's Learning Center naked and attacked a deputy on Monday. Mike Ryan's not allowed to have known that was going to happen.
I apologize. You're right.
No matter what his troubled past, I don't know what happened there. He's 6'6", 290 pounds. What made me think of it, Mike, is your top 5 weird bodies, because I can't imagine I don't know what the details are that led to that strange story. When that's happened over the last 10 years, I always think it's synthetic weed. I don't know what it would be now that we're not, you don't have to worry about that.
Florida. That's what that is now.
I mean, I don't know.
He once served 11 months in jail, this player. He was available to the Browns because he was kind of out of chances, and he performed quite well on that defensive line this year, and it looked like the Browns took a chance on someone, and it was paying immediate dividends. And there is nothing surprising, unfortunately, although the details may be, about him getting in trouble in the offseason.
But 3 sacks, 19 tackles, troubled. And I don't know what had to happen for those. I don't know what details I would have to have that would make me side with him on why were you, like, unless they're I mean, I assume, again, I know that we don't love the mental illness stuff, but
those would be important details.
I just don't know what the set of circumstances needs to be for that to happen to a person. I don't know what reported details that you could give me. And I know it's a broad brush, right? People with varying degrees of mental illness don't want this or Antonio Brown. They don't want this to be the thing. Wait a minute. Come on. Don't hit me with that brush. But I just don't know what would lead. If it's not synthetic weed, if it's not you're altered in some way, I immediately wonder, well, what happened to your head?
In his past, he's had some alcohol-related stuff, too, and you don't know if it's self-medication or... It's tough. He's obviously a troubled individual. It's a bummer.
Well, speaking of troubled individuals, one of the pictures or a video that I saw, Stugotz, I did not know what the circumstances were. I assume maybe a video shoot or a magazine cover of some sort, where I saw a video of Floyd Mayweather, Antonio Brown, Madonna, Kanye West. It's
just Ye now.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
It's just Ye. Is that I've shown
$5.
Wait a minute. That can't be a fine.
Well, I mean, that's his name.
I've just broken it to you, and you'll correct the behavior, undoubtedly.
So
Don't do it again,
I'm
Dan.
only allowed to make it Ye. That's all I'm allowed to do.
What's atop the Coachella poster? He prefers Ye.
Can you explain to me what was happening in that video where these people had gathered?
Julia Fox, too, the person that
the girlfriend of Kanye West, who says it was very organic.
It's Ye.
Their second date, very organic. That he bought a hotel room floor and outfitted it with every designer that she could possibly want. She said their relationship is very organic. That was their second date. And there was also
she gave an interview. She wrote the article herself, I think, accounting her date. No, she seems to be enjoying the attention a little bit. This has been very good for Julia Fox.
There was
who was
also
in Uncut Gems, by the way.
There was also another woman I did not recognize. Madonna was hugging on.
I didn't recognize that woman.
So she's not a famous woman. She was just there for Madonna.
I'm sure she is famous, and it was just a pop culture lapse on my part. I barely recognize Madonna.
It's a celebrity hotspot. I don't think it was a planned thing. I think it's just a place a lot of celebrities go, and they ended up there. So it was like, let's take this picture because this is a really cool room.
That was happenstance?
It says in a private room at a celebrity hotspot. Delilah?
Yeah, that could be total happenstance in New York City at a hot celebrity hub. Yeah.
Well, but it seemed like a group of people. I figured someone called Chappelle and he declined. It felt like a group of people for the modern times, the sort of polarizing among us, that it would be a form of art that they were going for. I didn't think that was happenstance.
According to People, they all had, quote, they all had dinner in a private dining room. They came separately, but just ended up having dinner together, a source tells People. Kanye and Julia wouldn't leave each other's side.
Oh, nice.
If I gave you, though, a group of people to put in a photograph for Celebrity for Modern Times, I mean, this is Madonna across several decades. I was just talking about this with my wife, Stugotz, because I can't believe a bus came past us with Snoop Dogg on it selling Corona, and I was just sort of marveling at the career that dude has had that started with like a murder trial, because he's relevant across the decades. And the only person I can think of was like Madonna. You can laugh at her if you want, but across decades, for her to keep some sort of credibility is staggering. And we were talking about the idea of, if you are going for, you want your brand is a beer, and you want Bad Bunny so you could grab some Latin, and you need to go get black street credibility. you'd still go. Like, it's not going to be Ice-T. It's not going to be LL Cool J. It's not going to be Method Man. It's not going to be Ice Cube. It's not going to be Dr. Dre.
It's still Snoop,
It's
yeah.
still Snoop. He was doing AOL commercials. He was doing like commercials with Lee Iacocca to make himself mainstream. And I just can't believe it that he's kept that credibility. But if I tell you Madonna, who's missing from that photograph? Are Kardashian, O.J. Simpson, who's Chappelle? Who do I put for the modern times fame and the way that it can distort
Joe
you?
Rogan.
Did you finally get around to listening? Because
To the Robert Malone episode, I did.
270 physicians got together and have now written a letter to Joe Rogan or written a letter to Spotify trying to get Joe Rogan to stop spreading medical misinformation. And that, how many views does that thing? Because now what you have happening, it's an amazing thing to see happen in this country where it feels like censorship to the people who want to believe this, where when you ban it on YouTube or Twitter, or when some of these people get banned, it's a badge of honor. It's something, look, the man's trying to hold me down. It's not for misinformation. It's because the man is trying to control the messaging on what doctors are trying to tell you are scientific facts, but we continue to head into the dangerous place where propaganda resides, where you can't believe anything you're reading now because people see different things and hear different things depending on what their confirmation bias is.
You know, people treat facts as a buffet table.
Yes.
And they just skip over the stuff that they don't find agreeable, and they pad the stats with things that they believe in. And that's what Robert Malone's episode was. Look, Robert Malone obviously has the bona fides. I'm not going to pretend like I know more about vaccines, but in listening to the episode
or medicine, you don't know more about medicine, but medicine can be subjective and you can get different opinions even among expertise. But you have 270 something physicians now getting together and writing a letter, telling Spotify what you're doing is irresponsible.
Well, they're looking to censor that episode entirely the way that YouTube did. YouTube took it down, as you mentioned, and I don't necessarily know where I stand on that, but look, a lot of people were like, listen to this, and I'm not so set in my ways that I'm not going to experience something and just to see their side and where they're coming at it from. I kind of saw some of the stuff with regards to boosters. I think even myself, like when I see in the news, oh, maybe a fourth booster, I'm like, where does this end? Is this going to be a seasonal thing with the flu? Because I don't always get the flu shot. We're still learning about it. But when I listen to this episode, I listen to a man describe nearly dying from COVID, then taking the vaccine, then almost not dying at all from COVID, having problems he attributes to the vaccine. And I'm like, these sound like you could attribute them to the virus just as well. And I see this a lot with soccer because there's a lot of hard issues going on in the stands right now with soccer fans. Weirdly, a lot of Chelsea games, the last 3 Chelsea games that I've seen, there's been a medical emergency and the games had to be stopped. And people that are vax hesitant or anti-vax are pointing to that and going, see, that's the vaccine. I don't know if it's the vaccine or what it is, but myocarditis is also from COVID. So people are dismissing the fact that it could be from COVID and just pointing to the vaccine when I think the stats point to it being more likely that it's a result of having COVID. And we're now living in a time where pretty much everyone's gotten COVID at least once. If you've dodged it, consider yourself lucky. So I see this with the reporting of players too, and I don't understand why we're framing it that way, because I see Alphonso Davies out with myocarditis, and then I have to read the article and find the part that says he had COVID, and people are just cherry picking that, throwing that into group text saying, hey, look, here's the vaccine. I'm like, no, it could be COVID too.
What did you make of the episode? Having heard, did you listen to all 3 hours?
I heard people just totally overlooking that everything could be associated with COVID and just blaming a vaccine for it. It's an effective tool though, because even listening to it, my own reservations about additional boosters grew after listening to it. I am a little hesitant about the boosters. I say that as a fully vaxxed, fully boosted individual, but I am curious of where this ends.
How much more, right? As we see that there's been a dilution of, there aren't a great many deaths with some of the new variants, and so I do think a lot of people will stop now at triple boosted.
Not me. I mean, as often as you tell me to get a booster, I'll go get a booster. If you tell me to get a booster every single day for the remainder of time, I'll get a booster every single day.
Look, I ended up getting the booster even though I was hesitant. too.
Why do you always take it there?
Well, you have to take it there, Billy,
You
to
are
the
not
extreme.
going to go every day to get a booster.
What?
Scott.
This is the only time I believe science my entire
Do you
life,
get the
or
flu
even
shot?
or even understood it. No, I don't get the flu shot. I don't.
Okay.
I mean, it depends. You know, if I'm in Walgreens and there's not a long line
he's-
and the flu
he's
shot's
fine. We
available,
can just
I'll
keep
get
it
it.
moving.
He,
you know?
he is what Billy is asking you.
Why wouldn't you get the
No,
booster?
No,
What-
that's not what I'm asking.
What Billy is asking you is why, all of a sudden, after being the guy who's been going to Dead concerts and then coming on here at the microphone and shaming
Fully
people.
vaxxed.
It's
Yeah.
not even
Yeah,
that.
no,
it's
but-
just why do you always have to go to the extreme
This
of
is
the
the-
extreme?
yes,
I'm
that's
gonna
right.
six times a day if I have to.
It's how you
He
play
wants
the
to be
game,
He
pro
Billy.
wants to be
booster.
the most boosted.
Right.
Yes.
The most boosted.
You
He
can
is-
just be pro booster. You don't have to fly by us and
but
be
this
the
is-
guy holding
this-
the flag.
Did you
know
see
what?
the six?
I can treat the booster however I'd like to treat the booster, and what I am telling
This
you,
isn't
Chris
even
Cody,
about the booster.
It's
Well,
about
it's
you
about
wanting
me.
to be.
I
No, it's about
understand
you
that.
wanting to be the most right. It's about you taking the take
I don't like that.
Most
you know,
left, actually.
where.
You
But this is the one that he's going to be the most left on. He
Yes.
avoids all these conversations. But the vaccine, look, I'm believe in medicine more and science more than anyone in medicine and science. If you tell me to go, he doesn't do anything every day except lie.
yeah.
So he's not going to go
I come here. I mean,
every day. You just came off of a 4-day weekend and complained about being tired.
I'm exhausted, but I'm here today. I mean,
You mentioned that this variant isn't killing people as much, and that's in large part due to the vaccines. I think the efficacy of vaccines is pretty irrefutable at this point. People, what I always find confusing is the capital that one article about someone having a stroke after they take the vaccine, what that has, how it speaks to people's apprehensions, and 10,000 dead from COVID on the ticker on a cable news network doesn't land with them at all. They care about the one life that was impacted with the vaccine. I'm like, this is just easy math.
I'm doing some of this in sports over the course of the show today, right? I'm asking you the kinds of questions like, do you care that Peyton Manning is getting Russell Wilson and not asking about the thing? Do you care that we don't take guests who have provisions? Because what I see, and this is in the little world of sports, but what I see deteriorating throughout journalism, I've told you, Stugatz, greatest heartbreak of my professional life is to see that such an orange turd of an oaf could take that hatchet to what I believe to be something that protects democracy, protects it by giving you facts, truth to power. And if you start distorting those facts, if you start choosing your own, if you start making the menu items where you can just form your own argument around all your confirmation bias, and there's no one who can tell you the truth who's trying to vet it properly. At a time when it is harder to discern the truth than it has ever been, what I see collapsing or withering or dying is the journalistic truth entity that protects the democracy, that protects the freedom, that acts as an independent, objective thing because we used to agree on what were facts. And if Joe Rogan becomes more of a hero and a martyr by daring to test authority, and he's always been this, Stugatz. I remember the first few times we talked to Rogan, he was counterculture, about public drugs, about, hyperbaric chambers, about taking care of his health. He was somebody, as the host of Fear Factor, an amazing career, really, amazing, who was a contrarian, perpetually testing conventional beliefs, and then became the caveman thinker, renegade, because he dares to do the following, Stugatz, and it's not very hard right now in this climate. Question mainstream media, question government, question the pharmaceuticals. Of course. Yes, question all of those. I
Questions
understand.
the data with hospitalizations, which I actually found that chunk in that episode interesting.
Yes.
About how hospitals are incentivized to report COVID cases. I do think that some of the stuff that he does is worth exploring, but I also think that this is more about bleep you than the thirst for knowledge. I think that's maybe where Joe Rogan started, and now he has entered this right-wing echo chamber where he's buoyed by the support that he gets, and he's further alienating himself from moderates and the left, and he's running to where he's supported. And you can see in how that podcast used to be. I used to love that podcast. I thought that there was a lot of interesting stuff and a lot of interesting guests on that podcast. But it's certainly changed in the course of direction.
Mike, that's the division. That's the division, though. You will get any number of people who say they don't listen to us anymore because we're way too woke. This show has it's been too politicized when all we've ever been is a show that enjoyed talking about race. And as I've told you clearly, I've vastly, vastly, vastly underestimated the race problem in this country. No matter how uncomfortable it made you with us talking about it because you didn't want it near sports. I mean, vastly underrated it, and here we are in a spot where it doesn't mean Rogan's audience is entirely white, but you do have, just like Twitter becomes your newspaper, just like we all have our own echo chambers, what you do get is a lot of places where the white man feels more comfortable. And this doesn't mean his audience is not diverse because he's got too big an audience for it not to be diverse. But there are a whole lot of people out there craving counterculture right now, rejecting mainstream media, rejecting, again, the place I always end up with this conversation always is, do you understand at the height of newspapers, and Stugotz, we've been talking about this since you wouldn't make a distinction between the New York Times and, my daddy's got a scout.com. This deterioration has been happening for a long time, and people don't understand in the journalistic high end of this how much vetting has to go into fact giving, and that you can just undermine that with a Facebook post. That it really does take a hatchet to what I believe to be an important checks and balances in our government that protects our freedom if we can't agree on a set of facts.
When you see the data of vaccinated population and the percentage of people that are just flatly unwilling to even consider taking the jab, it's us and Russia that jump off the page. And everywhere else, you have like sophisticated countries that have close to 90% vaccination rates. And we've gotten so toxic, and I made this point like months ago, that I think the vaccine is just like the Waterloo for people that have felt marginalized, that are right-wing conservative people that feel like you took their president, you take their facts away because you're always trying to censor their news, and this is the one thing that they can control, and you're not going to make me do that. And I think it's become more of that. There are plenty. We're all living this together. This is unprecedented times for our generation. You can question medicine, and I think you can do so responsibly. I don't believe he does that, and I largely don't believe he does that, and people just totally bypass the problems that stem from the virus itself. And you get to a point where people are like, well, the treatment, I'm not going to say cure, because obviously Omicron kind of surprised all of us. We thought if we were fully boosted, we weren't going to be testing positive, largely. Well, it's changed. People are fully boosted and get sick, so it's not a cure, but it's a treatment. And to point to the treatment saying it's worse than the virus itself.
Well, there's nothing scientifically, factually to show that from anybody. No one says that.
When Joe Rogan caught the damn thing, and his regimen of treatment seemed insane to me, and it seemed far more complicated than just getting a jab to begin with, I'm a little confused by it, but I think it's more about ego and just refusal to admit that you're wrong.
Well, to a similar vein, I think a large portion of what we're talking about on a bigger level is the rejection of experts, that people can tell you that they know what's happening, particularly with this, where Anthony Fauci has taken so much criticism on television because he has told you things of how this is going to play out, and when he's wrong, he's like, see, he doesn't really know. People don't really know.
But why don't we make a distinction? Of course, science and medicine don't know. It's practicing. But why can you not make a distinction between the people who have more expertise here probably are more informed than you are? Like, that doesn't seem to be a big leap. They can make their mistakes. They can be wrong. They can get it wrong, but they have more information in their assessing. To me, it feels like the questioning of coaches or the questioning of scouting departments and all this stuff. They are indisputably more invested in being correct with factual scientific data that is being received by the audience as, no, that guy's got an objective and an agenda. He's just doing the bidding of big pharma.
Remember all the toothbrush commercials? 9 out of 10 dentists agree this is a toothbrush for you. Yeah. And now we're making that 10th dentist a celebrity. We're giving that 10th dentist that we never gave a shit about.
It's Joe
That
Rogan.
never helped guide our toothbrush shopping decisions, and we're giving them the biggest platforms in digital audio.
But the thing is that people have now, with some credibility, made the argument that 9 out of 10 dentists are bought by Big Pharma, by the makers of the toothpaste, and because there has been some wrongdoing and some criminality by people who have taken money, it has eroded credibility, and ultimately this comes down to an availability of information, where because you can see one headline and think, wait a second, this thing that I believed in, it might actually not be wrong. There's a distrust, and then also there's a anti-judgment. It's like, you're judging me because I'm being irresponsible. You're not better than me. You think you know the answers. You're not better than me because you could be wrong.
I'm having the conversation to start the show today about, well, wait a minute. I used to believe that Stephen Ross was the reason the Dolphins were going after Deshaun Watson. I have been given the reason to believe, as we all have over the last few months, that Adam Schefter, the way that he gets his information, can be one-sided. I'm tying it to the things in sports, but I'm asking you the question, America the question, freedom fighters the question. How did we get to a place where among the things that we distrust, and I totally get why you distrust journalism, government, distrust science, distrust everything, but how did we get to the place that we distrust facts? Facts. We're supposed to agree on the facts.
Well, because they come from people, and people are not always a trustworthy giver of facts, right? And so these big institutions say, well, these are the facts. If you have someone who questions them, there is that seed of doubt. There is seeds of doubt about anything, and you can find anywhere on the internet where you can have that doubt rewarded. Or
I can believe, I'm not kidding you, like as confused as I am how a QAnon, and the documentary McKay did was great on it, but how I am confused by how a QAnon is allowed to exist. This entire area has evaded me my entire life. The fact that I can go on the internet and believe anything about 9/11. Because there is, or anything.
Anything about anything.
They can convince me is what I'm saying. If I follow all of these conspiracy theories, I will believe that every act of power in this country is being run by someone sinister.
And if you listen to Joe Rogan enough, you'll start believing what it is Joe Rogan is saying about COVID and about taking the vaccine.
But Stugotz, he is saying things.
It's dangerous, Dan.
No, but he's got experts. And he is more credible on this subject. He is giving more to reaffirm the confirmation biases than anyone doing it, Stugotz. And his audience continues to grow because there is an element of martyrdom. The big people in charge of the conspiracy don't want me to hear this, so I'm going to listen to it all the more. And this is how you get a fracturing in America of journalism that once upon a time made Jon Stewart replace the anchorman as the most credible source in news media, because of how people distrust the news media. And now Joe Rogan, also a comedian, one not as deft as Jon Stewart, one not as good as Jon Stewart, but a counterculture thinker, continues to grow audience because it looks like, to the people with the persecution complex, like he's being persecuted by a YouTube interested in censorship, when all we're trying to do is get an agreement on facts, and we can't even do that. And I'm telling you, Stugotz, I don't know. The audience is probably tired of me sermonizing about it. But the reason I care about journalism's utopian objectives, no matter how much you hate the mainstream media and no matter how much you think that CNN and Fox have been compromised forever and don't actually represent objectivity, is because, as I see it crippled, resource crippled, as I see Amazon buy the Washington Post, there are very few people who can protect our democracy with truth. There are very few entities strong enough to do it. Television has collapsed. We're allowing comedians to have replaced Walter Cronkite. There needs to be governance in place that protects the freedom. It's why I'm always talking about it in sports, Stugotz, when it's silly shit like whether Schefter or, is compromised or not. But if everyone's compromised, Stugotz, then you'd get no agreement on facts. And if you get no agreement on facts, you get what you've gotten in this country the last 5 years, where the arguments aren't about anymore what you believe, I can't convince you no matter the proof no matter how factual the proof is I'm putting in front of you. There is no convincing because 44% of Republicans, I think, still think that Martin Luther King shouldn't have a holiday, more than when he got it, more than when he was alive, of Republicans. Like, that's the division in this country. If you're going to arm the outright racists, if you're going to make them a part of your political party in a way that you need that base because it's your constituency, you're no longer a party that cares about freedom in this country. A democracy only for 65 years since the Voting Rights Act. Like, you don't actually care about equality. The cries for equality sound like a threat to you. It's the others that are coming to get what little remains of America. That should scare the shit out of you.
I cannot, for the life of me, figure out who this other woman is. I've looked at like 4 different Instagrams of this dinner, and no one has her tagged for some reason. Everyone else is tagged in all the photos except the one woman sitting next to Madonna.
She's just there to be her plaything, like she's rubbing on her sensually. I assumed everybody in the video was on Molly. That's what I assumed. Like they.
Why would you assume that?
Bit of an assumption.
Yeah. What's the matter with you?
Well, I just assumed that there was a lot. I mean, there was a lot of touching going on.
It was just dinner, amongst friends.
That's reckless of me.
No.
I mean, assuming everyone's on drugs.
Did it not look like a dystopian drug future to you guys?
Like 5 or 6 people eating dinner to me.
Look like fun.
That's how I look when I go to the ale house.